Move it back. Actually.
Move back? Forward?
Yeah, let's do that.
Why don't you move this that way so it's... No, move it over
You
here.
want to do
So
that?
it's all of us. Yeah, because you don't like to roll back. If I feel confined, I'm going to get all claustrophobic. Congressional records. Serious debates of Congress. Why is this not working now? All of a sudden, it don't want to work.
You want me to just get the thing?
Yes. No. I mean, it's right here. It's right behind me.
Oh, okay.
I just want to show people that you can get it online too. For free. Govinfo.gov.
Go. Oh yeah, govinfo.gov.
That's a weird website name. Moses.law. that's a good one.
Matrix has you that word.
Nah, people are not gonna believe that one.
Hey, half the people will believe it, the other half won't.
Yeah. Govinfo.gov. Oh. June 12, 1967. Peace. Look, man, Ake's here. Staring at us. Peace. Why is this not loading the way it loads?
I'm gonna go grab some cold water real quick.
All right. Congressional records. 12, 1967. Oh. Page 156. Oh, this is. The Moors wear red fezzes. Oh, that's interesting because I'm a Moor. I'm a Moor and I'm wearing a black one. Also, Noble Drew Ali wore a black and white one in his office. Someone we're live on YouTube and someone put that in the comments. So Noble Drew Ali must not be a Moor then, because his fez. Yeah. Now he said or she said Moors wear red fezzes.
Alright.
So the picture of Noble Drew Ali with the black and white fez on, that means he's not a Moor. When he was in the office with the Moorish flag up.
He's just a temple member.
Yeah, he's just a member now. And he didn't teach that too, so. Just in case you forgot.
Alright, yo. 9:56. Let's go. I'm gonna just easy and get started off.
Alright.
This video first. Alright.
Trying to silence me.
You want to sit?
Oh, yes, thank you. The chalice. Thank you.
So it's our opinion that somebody may have called us here to set this up.
I'm sorry, could you start that again?
It's my opinion.
Oh, okay.
My opinion.
They have called us here to
Could you tell how
just
mad I
one
was?
spectacle.
Yes, everyone can tell.
Not analyze on your rights. Okay? You guys have rented space. It's fine. My so somebody mentioned in that particular phone call that they made the automatic weapons in that particular life. That's what we
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
And I hate to see something bad happen because we didn't investigate. That's my
Okay.
Other than that, we're not here to bother you guys. We're going to all get in our cars. We're going to leave back to the business. Whatever it is that you guys love. But I do want to caution set this up to just make a big spectacle, and it shouldn't.
When I tried to act like you did it.
We are. I have another.
Well, thank you.
It was obviously you guys were obviously.
Yeah.
Naturally, a phone call said the name that automatic weapons in that particular life. That's all.
Okay.
And I hate to see something bad happen because we did investigate. That's all.
Okay.
Other than that, we're not here to bother you guys. We're going to all get on cars. We're going to leave back to the business. Whatever it is you guys are. But I do want to call you. I'm a little concerned that I think that maybe somebody set this up to just make a big spectacle. And shouldn't have phone call the investigation. We are. I have another.
Well, thank you.
It was obviously you guys were obviously doing this.
Yeah, I'm live.
Because obviously somebody either
Not in the class.
following
Trolls online.
following the class or trolling the class, whatever. Somebody calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
We understand.
Nobody calls. Well, that's what the phone call. That's you gotta respect the fact that it's hard to invest, right?
Once there's a crime committed, once you have a warrant, but until then, there's no investigation.
See, that's it. We're not saying anything, but
Safety.
it's crime, right?
Safety.
And nobody on the phone call
Lion.
was saying it's crime, right? What the phone call was in regards to was they were afraid that somebody would get hurt by an automatic weapon that's not supposed to be.
I would like for you, I'm sorry, I would like for you to stop saying automatic weapon because you know they're illegal in Rhode Island, but that's hearsay over the phone, and you didn't verify if it was an automatic weapon or not. So please stop putting those words onto us. No, you know, right? But you have to understand that you have to use the proper words because, yeah, we don't understand. So, but when we came outside and we were all in the classroom with children, with mothers, I'm pregnant, and we said, everybody is safe. There's no problems here. But you,
So once we're here, we understand that after 20 people told it to him.
Right? He just shut up. Hey.
Once we're here, we understand that. If the fact that you would let us go inside or whatever, and we saw everything that was going on, and we're expecting.
You really tried to pull that one on me again?
Yeah, for real. Like, let us go inside. Like,
After I just
you
yelled
have
down your
no
throat?
jurisdiction.
After you just said you had no standing and you're trying to slip that one in again?
thank you very much.
Just in case he really didn't know what he was talking about.
Ellie's just screaming awesome in his face.
Islam, Moors. Peace and love. Happy holy day to all the Moors worldwide. Wherever you're at. Honestly, we're here for our update with the Moors near Rhode Island. They've been getting a lot of attention lately. So we just wanted to put some things on the record, just so, people are clear as to what's going on. The video that we just played was is on the Rise of the Moors YouTube page for anybody's clarification. That was a sergeant that was admitting that when it comes to these Moors, they don't have any standing with regard to whatever it is that they're doing. Highwayman admitted that whoever called is trying to trump up something or trying to make them look like something that they're not. Whoever called, they have the number and they're going to be investigating all this so that people could see that the law enforcement people don't have an issue with Moors. The only people who have an issue with Moors is our people who don't want to understand, appreciate, recognize the truth about their nationality and birthrights and the dynamic message that Noble Juali brought to our people in the 1920s. So we want to basically speak with the Moors directly. We're not going to do hearsay. We're not going to do post something that they posted and all that stuff. We're going to talk with them directly so that the people can be clear as to what's going on, why it's going on, and the importance of us as Moors, especially the active, righteous, sincere, truthful Moors, staying in unity so that we don't get, misclassified or whatever as anybody else or anything else or whatever. So, without further ado, Islam Moor.
Peace.
Peace.
And Islam Mother, how y'all doing?
Peace.
Good.
That's proper. You could basically start, I guess, with what led to having this court date that's coming up.
All right. Well, I kind of want to talk about that video real fast, and then because it's kind of it's related, but indirectly related.
Right.
So that was a result of me being on camera, live YouTube, with my rifle several times in a row when I first started doing it. So that wasn't even the first time I did it. I had did a weapon safety class like 2 days before that at our old temple. And, Moors basically threatening us, trying to say, well, you're going to get arrested, blah, 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 even though you can look up, European YouTube channels where they have millions of followers and they're blowing stuff up. They're shooting, sniper rifles at things, things like that.
Not only that, in the state of so-called Rhode Island, you're allowed to have, without a license, a long arm, any rifle or shotgun.
You can have a pistol and a rifle, shotgun, any gun.
You can carry it
in
openly,
Rhode Island without a license.
or even traveling.
Yeah, according to Rhode Island general laws, which is their colonial stuff. So what the cop was talking about was automatic weapons, automatic weapons, automatic weapons. The only way to tell if my type of rifle is automatic or not is based on a little switch that you can't even see on camera. So they were trying to use that as the reason to come inside the building. So someone has, and all that was live. That class was live that day where we were talking about the Moorish National Constitutional Convention.
Okay.
The police admitted that they watched our video on YouTube where I was live. And then I ended the live footage because my cousin Robbie called me in the middle of class. While he was in class, he left, went downstairs, called me to let me know that there was cops outside. So I didn't go first. The Moors were intelligent enough to go before me because they really just wanted me, right? COINTELPRO. So like 5 Moors went down to see what was going on. They would speak to the cops, come upstairs, relay the message to me. I would relay a message to them to tell the police. By the time I got down the stairs, there was about 20 police men and women flanking the entrance of the temple, about to raid the building. If it wasn't for all of us going outside and reading the Constitution, they would have raided the building.
Before you carry on,
Yeah.
Before you carry on, could you just explain flanking for people who might not understand?
So flanking is basically the door. Once you go out the door, you can either turn left or turn right. So when I say flanking, they're on both sides, like against the building. So, when if you see pictures of people stacked, like any military or SWAT platoon stacked, about to enter a building, that's what they were doing. But they weren't expecting 20 Moors to roll out there like, yo, what are you doing? And then once we started reading Rhode Island State Constitution, our right to bear arms, and how you can't search the building without a warrant, half of them left. And all of this is on footage, so we're not lying about any of this. It's on the Rise of the Moors YouTube. And the part that you read was probably about an hour into the basically standoff of 20 of them and 20 of us, where they ended up just leaving. A lot of people think that video is why we're going to court now, and it's not. After that video, we filed a federal suit against the Providence Police Department. We were trying to meet with Mayor George Alorza, or Jorge Alorza, or whatever his name is. And then we filed a claim with the Providence External Review Authority, basically trying to sue them in federal court for conspiracy to deprive us of our rights, because they were about to raid that building with no warrant. After that, that's when the FBI called me. Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So you weren't suing because they did something. You were suing because they were about
Yeah, they planned on it. Yeah, they were conspiring to deprive us of our rights.
18
Right.
Yeah,
USC
there was.
241 and 242.
Yeah, like she said, 18 USC 241 and 242. They were. I know what a military stack. I know what a stack looks like. I know what a raid looks like. The way they were positioned on the building, they're about to enter that building. The police also admitted that they were watching our live YouTube video. They admitted it on camera. We have them on camera saying that.
And one of somebody's footage, it might be ours, when we first go outside, you can see them
Yeah.
pressed up against the wall.
Yep.
So
Yep. So they planned on doing that. They were expecting us to be niggers.
Right.
That's what they were expecting. They were expecting us to go out there, guns ablazing, and trying to fight with these people. And literally, when we went outside, there were cop cars. You know, like sharks they'll swim around.
Yeah.
You know what I
yeah.
mean? That's what they were doing around the block.
they kept
Like,
putting the sirens on to scare us and stuff.
yeah, not our block, like a block radius around us.
Yeah.
That's what they were doing. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, we're not even doing nothing, you know? And since we had children in the temple, you know, women and children, I ended up putting my firearms in my office and locking it up and then going downstairs. You know what I mean? Because it's all about safety. Like those liars try to say, well, you know, it's about safety. Even though they admitted they had no jurisdiction, they admitted that they can't enter the building. But that's when he started to try to clean it up. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Once he realized we knew what we were talking about.
Once we started reading that Constitution, and half of them left.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then
and also too, with regard to that situation for people, how important is it that we stand on law based on what it is what we just watched and what you're explaining.
There's
For those who might know whatever,
Yeah.
why is it important for us to know and to stand on law?
Because like I said, they were literally about to raid the building. They're about to enter the building, search and seize a bunch of things without a warrant. The Constitution states that the Rhode Island state constitution, not just the federal constitution, both the federal and state constitutions say the same things. There has to be a warrant for them to even go into the building, ask me about any firearms, look for anyone holding any firearms, which they didn't have. They just had a phone call. And they admitted that they seen the video, so there was nothing dangerous or unsafe happening. And I'm a veteran, so it's, you know, but you'll see. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and it's so-called legal, so once you uphold them to their own constitution, they can't really ignore you.
Yeah. And like I said, if you watch the video on our YouTube, you'll see where I started reading the Constitution, and then you started seeing them leave. Half of them left. Literally, there was about 20 of them. I started reading the Constitution, the state Constitution. Half of them left.
You can hear their cars starting and everything on.
Yeah.
on
So it looked like in that video there was a lot of them. Nah, there was more than that. So if it wasn't for that, they probably would have stayed there and treated us like we were, you know, like, because, you know, we could have been out there saying, oh, this is racist and this is that and this is, nah, you're violating our rights. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else to stand on. I mean, the proof is right there. That's why it's important. Because if that was someone else, it would have ended, you know, worse.
Yeah, something else would have went down for sure if that was UEP gun club people or whatever.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have went just like that.
Yeah.
His YouTube channel is Rise of the Moors.
Yeah.
Or is it Jamal's?
No, it's Rise of the Moors.
Okay, yeah.
It used to be
Rise
back in the day.
Well, it used to be there.
What did he say?
He's asking to do something.
I don't know if you got any questions right now. Go to
Just real quick, give thanks to Brother Jamal and his small brothers right next to him for the hard work that they've been doing for the nation and whatnot. But a quick question, just for more proof that you know nationality works. Because I heard you said you had to put your arms in your office or whatnot and locked it up.
Yeah.
Now, do you still have those arms?
Yeah.
Because if it was, my thing is, if it wasn't what it was, they would have confiscated your arms and took everything away from you. Do you still have your arms?
I still have them. Yeah, I'm wearing one right now. This is the Glock I was wearing on the video.
Prove it again, like, because if it was nigger stuff, they would have took your arms.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got everything.
Still has your arms. Like, they came, you know,
Plus,
they
there's a
can
bunch
see
of
the
names
video,
over there.
all those highwaymen surround them. And if it was Negro colored black activities, they would have did everything in the above and confiscated his arms.
As evidence.
He still has his arm.
Yep.
And that was one of the things that was bugging me out, because I was like, man, any other time they would have took that.
Yep.
You know?
True.
So just again,
Nah.
rationality or where it is.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother Jamal.
Thank you.
So, and another point too, Chairman Tez Babe at our temple just put something in the chat for individuals who are in the jurisdiction of Canaan land. Don't think that you're going to hold them to some Canadian Constitution Act and Bill of Rights Act and whatever for up here. That's not the same as what they're saying. The law that they're standing on is Constitution. They're not standing on an act. They're not standing on a statute. They're not standing on an ordinance. They're standing on the supreme law of the land.
Which
Whereas,
is applicable in Canada.
at Canaan land, you can do your research on MP Walter Cool, Kuhl, who wrote the book, Canada, the Country Without a Constitution. To let you know that they don't even have a constitution here. Which is why we start talking about the supreme law of the land, and we're talking about United States of America Constitution, because Canada is in North America. So the supreme law of the land for Canada is also the United States of America Republic Constitution, because Canada is a republic state of the Union States.
Right.
So they're supposed to be going by not some stuff that they made up in 1867. They're supposed to be going back to the 1700s just like everybody else, and using Supreme Law of the Land, Constitution, treaties, and all that as the law here. And us standing for that here is what causes them to, get on their abuse of authority and color of law or whatever. Because as soon as we stand on that, they're done for. Because Canada is originally a common law jurisdiction, which the people are the ones who are the law, not the quote-unquote lawmakers.
Can I add real fast?
Yes, Mark, go ahead.
It's either the Articles of Confederation or the Articles of Association. Article 11 states that Canada is part of the United States.
Exactly.
All right, so now we filed claims in federal court against the police. Then we were making so much noise with that. We ended up being written about in the Providence Journal. I had a meeting with the retired Chief Justice of the Rhode Island Supreme and Superior Court.
The para investigation.
Yeah, the para investigation, which is the Providence External Review Authority. Because basically what we're doing is snitching. We're basically snitching that these people were about to violate us. Because they always put this in our people's minds. Don't snitch. Nah, snitch on them. Because
if you're gonna snitch.
Yeah, snitch on them. Because the problem is they violate us, and then my experience is that we'll get violated, and then Moors will just talk amongst each other about how they've been violated. Like, how about you stop telling me the same story over and over again, write it down, and then file a claim in court.
Right.
Direct that energy at them, not me. You're just making me feel bad.
Right.
So then what ended up happening was, we got to the temple that we were in, the 255 Main Street one. We were leasing from two Asiatics, both of them with the last name Moore. None of them, they weren't even related. And they liked what we were doing, so they gave us the space. And then some women from the community basically were having some DCYF problems with the courts violating their rights, taking Aboriginal children without any warrants and things like that. So they came to us for help, and we decided to help them. So they had planned a DCYF rally, and I was speaking to the woman, Judy or Anna, who was putting it together. I said, instead of just rallying, let's, we can still do the protest because that's what they want to do, right? That's fine. I don't want to take that away from them. If that's how they want to spend their time, great. But if you're asking us for help, this is what we have to do. So still do the protest. We, instead of just doing it at the DCYF building, let's also walk the street down to the State House. right? Because Rhode Island's so small, everything's tiny. We walk there in like 20 minutes. And instead of just protesting there, we're going to go inside. I'm going to create a petition for all of us to sign to get the executive branch and the legislative branch to hold the judicial branch accountable according to their laws, right? Because what they were doing, and I went to court with this woman, they were having private hearings where the public can't go in and listen to whatever the European is about to say against some Asiatic family. The grandmothers weren't allowed to speak. The mothers weren't allowed to speak. Only the European attorneys could speak. So I'm like, well, that's a violation of your rights right there. So I wrote up the petition again for Governor Gina Raimondo, the European governor, the Attorney General of the state of Rhode Island, and the legislative body, the General Assembly of Rhode Island, to investigate again the judicial proceedings of DCYF. So that's when we ended up at the State House. While we were there, all of this is on footage too. While we were there, you can follow. There's a YouTube channel called Demand the Truth. It's a European. He's sunning these colonists like in their face, like
Dolo.
brave, right? So while we were there, he ended up getting body slammed by a state trooper because he called one of them bald, and they didn't like that. So he got body slammed. Yeah, he called because his hair was just gone. He was like, "Hey, bro." Yeah, he got mad, and this is all on camera. This is on footage. He said, "Hey, bro, your wife probably thinks you're an idiot. Just cut it all off," right? So the guy gets mad, slams the guy Will.
He's tiny too.
Yeah, he's tiny.
And
He's
marble.
130 pounds, probably like 5'6", European guy, right? Demand the Truth on YouTube. Check him out, because he's in these people's faces, right? At Joe Biden rallies, calling them pedophiles and stuff like that. So they body slam him. Once they body slam him, everyone's mad. Like, bro, he did nothing. We didn't do anything here. There's like 15 state troopers in the State House at this time, basically following us. Certain people are yelling. Most of the Moors aren't yelling. We're there to file the paperwork, to assist, and then leave. But once he got body slammed for no reason, and everyone's seen it, everyone was mad. Rightfully or upset. So a bunch of commotion is happening. People are yelling, why'd you do that? You're a terrorist. He did nothing. Why are you arresting him? So while he's being arrested and escorted out the State House, Juju is following the state troopers that's taking him, right? Because we consider him, one of those deists that Taj talks about, because he's very much about the Constitution. So she's trying to figure out where they put him, because sometimes they'll arrest people. Sometimes there'll be like, different municipal police cars around, so we don't know where they're taking him. So she leaves the State House with the state troopers to see where they're putting him. Then she comes back inside the State House. Meanwhile, keep in mind, to enter into the State House, you have to go through their security thing. Metal detector, empty your pockets, all that stuff. So she does that. Then, more and more are yelling. A few of our members get sexually assaulted, which all of this is on camera. One of the troglodytes did a sexual gesture towards one of the Moors. Then I said, hey, let's not worry about these troglodyte niggers and leave. So we left. A week later, we're just chilling, living our lives. Like, hey, we served, we went to the State House, what we were supposed to do. Someone got arrested, but, he's out now, so everything's fine. So we're just living our lives, right? We're just being Moors. I'm reading the Quran. Someone knocks on the door, so Juju goes to answer the door. You want to tell them what happened at this part? Because you were there.
So someone knocked on the door. It was a European man at first, from National Grid, asking me questions like, can we cut the tree down? And they're talking to me about some work they're gonna do.
This was right before the 5G stuff.
They didn't even ask me if I was the owner of the house or anything. So then about an hour later, another man knocks on the door, but he was Asiatic, and he was holding a clipboard, and he was kind of like bugged out. If you've ever seen anybody on any type of drugs, how they move, how they're frantic. I realized that something was up, so I already had the door locked, and my foot was like in front of the door, like holding it. If anybody was to push it open, it can't go anywhere past my foot. So once I saw somebody running up behind him towards me in the house, like in all black, I slammed the door shut, and immediately they start like banging on the door, like not even saying who they are or what they're doing. There's no signs of like policy enforcer badges or uniforms. There's not even cop cars or anything outside. So then they start talking about how, they're banging saying they have a warrant, mind you, no warrant in their hand, and you showed up like you're trying to
In civilian clothes.
yeah, what's the tactic
It's called bait and switch.
Yeah.
If you look up, if you just YouTube home invasion, you'll see where someone will walk up to the door friendly, and then 2-3 other criminals behind them walk up with guns, and then they rob you, or they kill you, or they rape your wife, or they murder your dog, or strangle your fish.
Yeah. So then I yelled to Jamal and Moronebe that was upstairs that we were about to get robbed by crackheads. So they came downstairs, and I went upstairs to grab the iPad, and they supposedly showed Jamal the warrant.
So let me.
Yeah.
All right. So our house is huge. There's literally like 3 stories. So it's hard to. Well, I have bad hearing. I'm actually. I was supposed to get it covered by the VA, but they said I'm not deaf enough. But anyway. So I hear her yelling. I don't remember touching any steps. I just was like, I ran and I flew downstairs. Once I got downstairs, they said that they were cops. So I said, all right, let me see your warrant. She goes upstairs to get the iPad. And before I continue a little bit, I want to show you something. Right, so she goes upstairs to get the iPad because she doesn't want our camera system to have the only proof. Right, so that's outside of our house. This one right here, that's the front door. Right, so this is on all the time, 24/7, on all the time. But we already know how these Europeans get down, how these colonists get down. So she goes upstairs to get the iPad so she can start recording on the iPad. So that's not the only camera footage, right? So while she goes upstairs, I asked them, where's the warrant? Where's the warrant? One of them signals to the other one. He runs across the street, comes back with a manila folder, and puts 2 pieces of paper to our glass window of the door for like 30 seconds.
Not
which,
even.
if you Google the average time it takes for
It's
someone to
not
read
30
a page, it's about 2 to 3 minutes. So I'm like, hey, just slide it through the mail slot so I can verify if this is a warrant. They refuse and basically say, if you don't let us in, we're gonna break it. And we're armed here, right? So we're strapped to head and toe, right? But I'm not trying to just kill nobody for no reason. Because if you got a valid warrant, let me see. If you're saying you got one, first of all, you wouldn't have to run across the street to get it. You would have it in your hand. Second of all, if you place it in front of me, I'm going to ask to see it. Let me see it. Put it through the mail slot because I'm not opening up the door for you. So we didn't want to just, empty a bunch of clips into a bunch of cops because that's what they wanted, because then it would have been, because first of all, it was the violent fugitive task force that came.
For
some
charges that they made up, because you didn't even tell them what the so-called charges were for.
I still don't know what the so-called charges, because
Well,
they showed up for a warrant that they didn't have in their hands. Long story short, they break down the door and they arrest us. 5 minutes later, then cop cars started to show up. Like they were around the block waiting because they were waiting for. They wanted me to react a certain way since I have guns, But I'm not retarded, right? So, long story short, the warrant was because they stated that she assaulted 3 state troopers in the state house with cameras.
And 10 other troopers.
And she was able to leave that day and not get arrested.
Leave and then come back.
Right? So now think about this. Normally when someone brings charges up against you, they bring the charges, they file it in court, a grand jury will examine it. If there's an actual crime committed, then they'll send you a summons to court, right? So they send you this stuff in the mail, hey, show up to court, blah, 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 blah. None of that happened. So it's not like they sent the summons, because she assaulted people. They sent the summons. She failed to show, so then they issued a warrant. It was just straight warrant from the Violent Fugitive Task Force,
I didn't get arrested
which
that day.
which deals with the top 10 most wanted people in Rhode Island, and we're not even on that list. And you can Google it. Look up Rhode Island State Troopers Violent Fugitive Task Force, and you'll see we're not on the top 10 list. But go ahead.
Me? Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were about to say something. I interrupted. Oh, so anyway, right? So we get. I basically get arrested for not letting them into my house to touch my wife. Because what man would let another man just go in his house and put their hands all over their woman, right? They bring us to jail. I'm bleeding. I got blood all over the cop car because they slammed me on my porch. And then they basically, we're in a cell. We're in the Lincoln State Police barracks cell for like just that night. They bring us to so-called court in the morning, and I'm wearing pajamas. You know, I'm just in my pajamas
Well, it was like all day.
in the so-called courtroom before Joseph Terrence Houlihan Jr., the acting magistrate, and they start talking about some stuff, and they say, well, you know, this is Jamal Latimer, and here's a driver's license. I said, objection, that's not me. Who's that? Where'd they get this name from? Because they didn't even ask me. They didn't ask my name at all. They just arrested me. I have no ID on me, nothing. My pockets were empty, you know. They said they ran the name through a database, and I said, well, what database? Because I didn't give them a name. So what database did they get this name from if I didn't give them a name? The magistrate ended up getting mad and put me back in the cell. Then Moreno went. Then they brought him back down.
Mm-hmm.
Then they brought me back up. And one of the European guards was like, hey, what did they do with your fez? I was like, what? They was like, yeah, did you get arrested with your fez on? I was like, no, what are you talking about? He said, aren't you a Moor? I was like, yeah. He said, oh, I know about Drew Ali. I know about the Quran. I said, oh, wow, did you read it? He said, no, I didn't read it because I'm a Christian. Then he said, you know, if your friend, talking about Moreno Bay, was, you know, spoke as intelligently as you did, then he wouldn't be he wouldn't have been sent to jail, right? So I go back upstairs. I'm trying to speak to the magistrate like, hey, you didn't notify my government to let them know that you have me. You just took me. You know, the magistrate ended up getting mad and said, you're innocent till proven guilty. This is just what I remember. You're innocent till proven guilty. 20,000 with surety. He banged his gavel, and then I went to prison too. So I'm thinking to myself, why would that European say, oh, well, if Moreno Bay spoke as intelligent as you did, you know, he wouldn't be in jail, when we both ended up in jail with inmate numbers, prison numbers, retina scans, and all that stuff. So while I was in prison, Juju put that video out. Moors gathered fiat together and was able to bail me out, which I thank y'all very much. Hold on, before I continue with the thanks and the praises of all the Moors. While I was in there, my paperwork, right? This is from the court, right here. I don't know if you can see that, but it says State of Rhode Island versus Abdullah Bay. You see that? That's not my handwriting. My handwriting is sloppy like that. So they recognize me as Abdullah Bay. So I ended up in prison with this. So they keep asking for this Latimer guy. Latimer. Like, nah, that's not me. Right? Then I say, you know, my paperwork is Abdullah Bay. That's who I am. They say, well, in here, you are who we say you are. So I'm like, all right, let me calm the fuck down before someone ends up dying in this bitch. Right? So that's the Roots movie. You know, you're not Kunta Kinte, you're Toby. You know what I mean? You know, they ended up putting me through some radiation machine. They took all my religious regalia off. And then the Moors thankfully bailed me out that day.
And Moreno Bay the next day.
Yeah, and Moreno Bay the next day.
If you don't mind me asking, what was the bail amount?
It was $20,000 with surety for me and Moreno. So it was $2,000 for both of us. So $4,000 total. The warrant was for her. She got out that day. Personal reconnaissance. So that's to me, that shows me that that's proof of the counterintelligence program, whereas they'll take, you know, quote unquote leaders, and if they don't have criminal backgrounds or records, they'll force it on them, and they collude with state police to do that.
Right. Brother Yusuf, you got any questions right now? Or you got your popcorn over there?
Popcorn, I'm doing it. You already know, brother Jamal going in.
Yeah.
Giving the information already now, so he's just laying it all out. The whole board just taking notes. That's all.
Yeah.
You know, just getting the platform and the foundation that he's laying down to show you how you're supposed to interact with these colonizers at the Moors. You know, because like you keep saying, it's all a setup. Like they just want them to act like niggers so they can proceed on doing what they gotta do. You know, but it just seems like the brother is just 10 steps ahead of him. Like, I know what y'all trying to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they got the same routine they've been doing for years.
Yeah.
And it's allowed to the Moor fighters too for standing on her birthright.
Islam.
Yep.
Islam.
She ain't scared of it. I'll tell you right now, she's not scared of these Europeans. If you think I'm brave, she will slap the European in the face for calling her anything but a Moor. Like, yo, chill, you gotta chill. She's a Taurus too. See how Taurus is. Y'all just be tripping.
And even in the court, they tried calling me by all kinds of different names, and I can even show you my court paperwork. They kept everything in my appellation.
Not me though.
Yeah.
On the police narrative, it's some other guy. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. Right. So, if you don't have any questions, I'll go into the first affidavit I filed with them.
Yeah,
All right.
no problem.
I don't know how to turn the camera around on this thing.
Let me see. I'll just have to hold it.
All right. So, this is the packet of information that I sent them over time, of course. The first affidavit is 10 pages. I'll try to keep it brief, right? So I started off, of course, with the flags, the case number, State of Rhode Island versus Abdullah Bay. And then, I start off with a disclosure statement. So it says, this affidavit of fact is not to be mistaken as submission to the jurisdiction, nor is it proof or evidence of the recognition to the validity of any alleged claims or complaints made by the plaintiff. This is solely, strictly, and only for the purpose of Jamal Talib Abdullah Bay to remain in honor and maintain his innocence. So then number one, I address status. Foreign national. 28 Code of Federal Regulations 50.5, notification of consular officers upon arrest of foreign nationals. For the record, I'm Jamal Talib Abdullah Bay, citizen of Morocco. All my allegiance is to the nation of Morocco, and I respect the treaty between my country and the United States. Pursuant to 28 CFR 50.5, in every case in which a foreign national is arrested, the arresting officer shall inform the foreign national that his consul will be advised of his arrest unless he does not wish such notification to be given. If the foreign national does not wish to have his consul notified, the arresting officer shall inform him that in the event there is a treaty in force between the United States and his country, which requires such notification, his consul must be notified regardless of his wishes, and if such is the case, he will be advised of such notification by the United States attorney. So if there's a treaty, nothing trumps that. Nothing. Not even my own personal opinion. Right? Then it continues, for the record, the people of Morocco was never notified that I was arrested, and therefore the Rhode Island State Troopers have violated my constitutional and treaty right to due process and have violated the laws of the United States. I have in my possession a certified copy from the Library of Congress, the treaty between my country, Morocco, and the United States, which Article 20 and 21 of said treaty states I have the right to have my consul present, which if you watch the video that I did when I recorded the proceedings, the second proceeding, because this was after, I wrote this after I got unlawfully arrested the first time. The second video, which is around 11 minutes, it's all dark because I had the phone in my pocket. I forgot to take it out of my pocket. You'll hear me walk in and say, oh, are you reading my affidavit? This is the one that I asked if he was reading. He said yes, and then he complimented me on it, about how good it was, right? The intentional refusal to contact my government, even upon even being notified by my diverse citizenship, is a violation of the justice of this court's constitutional obligation to protect my constitutional rights, and all persons having been placed on notice and in willful belligerence are to be held liable. The court was notified upon my arraignment that I am a Moroccan citizen and willingly refused to notify my consulate. The justice of the court is barred from claiming judicial immunity because once placed on notice, he continued with the proceedings outside of his prescribed jurisdiction, which is a violation of his oath to the state and federal constitution. Then I just put res judicata talking about the supremacy of the treaty, which I'm going to skip because this is 10 pages. Right? Exhibit A. Attached as Exhibit A is House Resolution 0689 from the state of Illinois, recognizes Moroccans as being Aboriginal and indigenous to North, South, and Central America, as well as recognizing us as a separate nation of people. This House Resolution deals with Article 4, Section 1 of the United States Constitution, full faith and credit clause, as well as the common law principles and foundation of res judicata and stare decisis of said article and section. Number 2, lack of jurisdiction. All of the state courts of Rhode Island lack personam jurisdiction over me and lack the subject matter jurisdiction to hear this case, as there is a standing treaty between the Moroccan government, to whom I hold allegiance, and the United States. It is stated in the federal constitution, which all judges of the United States and several states take an oath to, that only federal courts have original and appellate jurisdiction over cases between parties of diverse citizenship and nationality, as well as all cases in which there's an enforceable treaty. Also, as a side note, if you read Article 3, Section 2, it talks about how federal courts have jurisdiction over issues between states and its citizens. So even if they're claiming I'm a U.S. citizen, this issue still has to be dealt with in federal court pursuant to the Constitution, right? So no, don't let them get away with nothing. This is not an attempt to avoid justice. This is an attempt to adhere to the Constitution and treaty between our two governments. Failure to comply with the Constitution and treaty is a declaration of war against the Moroccan people. See Article 3 and 6 of the Constitution for the United States of America. Then I put a bunch of other res judicata that I'm going to skip because this is, again, 10 pages. Yep.
How come you didn't speak from the perspective of Jamal or Rise of the Moors, or why you keep making reference to Morocco and Moroccan and all that stuff in your people?
Because it's not about group, club, organization. My organization is better than yours. It's about us being a nation. So whatever affects me affects you. Noble Drew Ali wrote in the Quran that all living things are bound together by cords to every other living thing. So if you're affecting one Moorish American national, you're affecting all of us. Additionally, there's case law in res judicata that states that when one person is enforcing the Constitution, he's not doing it for himself, but for the public as a private attorney general. So it's about all of us. So, it's not I personally, my individual tribal nation has a treaty with the United States. No, all the Moorish people have a treaty with the United States. All of us are responsible with enforcing it. Once one of us is affected, all of us are affected. And if you say the prophet didn't teach that, well then why did he say all living things are bound together by cords to every other living thing?
Okay. That's a lot more.
Right?
Right here it says,
Huh?
the Rhode Island
What is that?
discharge of a person charged with offense beyond trial jurisdictions.
Oh, you want to read that?
Sure, it's the Rhode Island General Law Title 12 of...
What was the question?
Oh, no, you were just saying give thanks for the question and your answer.
Oh,
Oh.
you go ahead.
Just to piggyback off of the laws that you were talking about, Rhode Island General Law Title 12, Criminal Procedures of Preliminary Proceedings in District Courts, 1210 subsection 5, discharge of a person charged with offense beyond trial jurisdiction of district court. It says whenever any person shall be brought before any district court charged with any offense which it has not jurisdiction to try and determine, and after hearing all the evidence abducted in relation to it, it shall not appear to the district court that the accused is probably guilty of the offense or any other offense substantially charged in the complaint. The accused shall be immediately discharged.
So it's just saying if you have no jurisdiction, you have to either drop the case or move it to federal court, which is again dropping it, right? So continuing, I'm going to skip all that case law. Number 3 is declaratory statements and facts regarding my rights. Let it be known for the record that I have never and will never waive any of my rights, to include but not limited to my right to trial by jury, my right to counsel, and my right to free speech, because I found this out by Virgo Triad. It was stated online that I waived my right to trial by jury, and then they had me listed as someone else. So if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have known that they stated that I waived my rights. So I put that in here for her. So thank you, Virgo Triad, for looking out for your boy.
That's your number one fan.
Right?
Good question too.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat is Morocco here or in North Africa?
America is North Africa. So here. Right, and you can look up. There's a professor from the University of Florida that talked about Pangea 250 million years ago, how North America was attached to present-day Africa, and how the plates under Florida and Georgia are African plates. So if that is Africa under Florida and Georgia, then that means this is Africa.
It just came out too about Louisiana. Same thing.
Yeah, and Ivan Urisco, professor from the University of Rhode Island, found ancient Quranic manuscripts that predate Christopher Columbus by 500 years. He didn't find no Indian manuscripts, Quranic manuscripts. Who wrote the Quran? Moors. And of course, the Prime Minister of Turkey, Erdogan, or I don't know how to say his name, revealed to the entire Muslim community that Muslim seafarers arrived in America before Christopher Columbus. And of course, the Olmec heads wearing turbans and fezzes with tassels clearly dangling from their face, right? Then number 4 of my affidavit, I deal with identification. I state on the 10th day of Rajab, which translates to the 5th day of March, I was forcibly brought to court and was informed by a state trooper that he found an invalid license of someone who he alleged to look like me, named Jamal Latimer. I have stated several times that I am not Jamal Latimer, and I have attempted to offer the courts my valid nationality card pursuant to Criminal Resource Manual 1508 and 18 U.S.C. 1028 D3 to correct this issue, and it has been ignored. I have subsequently been listed as an inmate and prisoner under that name unlawfully, and my fingerprints and retina scans have been wrongfully taken and processed under that name. It is unlawful for any business to sell alcohol or tobacco products to anyone with a suspended or expired license, as it is considered invalid identification. It is also unlawful for any government agency to accept a suspended license or driver's license as valid identification, which you can just Google this stuff. Additionally, pursuant to the United States Justice Department, a driver's license is not identification. Then I put it, I reference it from that website.
It's a lack of a
and this is what it states. Driver's license is not defined in 18 U.S.C. 1028. The original purpose of this document, of this government-issued document, was to state a particular person was authorized to operate a vehicle upon the public roadways. It was not intended to establish one's identity. This is from justice.gov. Right, so I put that in there. Then I put number 5, declaration of facts regarding the events, which I kind of just went over that with you, so I'm going to skip that, about what happened that day and stuff like that.
One more question.
Yeah.
How come you didn't go as an Indian tribe or whatever?
because there's multiple case law. There's multiple. If you go.
And sorry, one more thing before you go. I'm also putting the link in the chat, so we might have some people that want to add in or ask questions. I'm just gonna push them, let them get in, and then whatever, however it goes, it goes. But so just so you know that in case you see another image pop up, there's probably somebody else that got a question or a comment.
All right. Oh, someone just popped up. All right. So why I'm not Indian? 1, because this ain't India. 2, if you just look up Christopher Columbus, you'll see where he mistakenly identified the Aboriginal inhabitants of America as Indians. So if it's a mistake, that means we're not Indian. Like if you mistaken me for a fish, and I'm not a fish, that means I'm not a fish, right? Additionally, if you look up the Bureau of Indian Affairs, you'll see where it was originally part of the Office of Indian Affairs under the United States War Department that was created in the mid-1800s. So prior to 1800s, it didn't exist, right? Then you'll see where from the early 1800s up until they created the Bureau of Indian Affairs under the War Department, that time period was called the Barbary Wars, where you'll see Thomas Jefferson was pleading to other European colonies to help the United States form a navy and a military to fight against the Moors. Once they defeated us, right, via Thomas Jefferson, then they started calling us Indian. So subsequently, when you hear Moors say Indians are wards, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs originated from the War Department, you'll see how that makes sense, right? Then you'll see where an Indian is a ward or a person who's incompetent. Of course, if someone comes to your land and calls you something that you're not, and you identify as that, you're incompetent. Obviously, right?
Hold on, let me just get Brother AL in there. Please, Brother AL, you could unmute if you got a comment.
Peace to the brothers, man. Islam. Listen, man. I definitely rock with you, man. I definitely commend, man, what you're doing, brother. I've been, I actually seen how you tore down too hard. Showing that he was, and I also got the thing when you show the Lenny Lenape and how they was called Moors.
Yeah.
Right? But this is just for the people, because I kind of represent the Aborigine community, right? And I'm kind of one of the brothers that's in the Aborigine community that identify to be the Moor. I know about the Andalusian Empire. I know that the triangle trade existed from Canada all the way through Iberia Peninsula. Peninsula all the way through Central and South America, right? My only question is this, right? We dealing with Morocco. I got a map with Morocco in Florida, right? Like a lot of people just get confused. Like, and I'm not saying for their kids' sake, because if they don't get it, they don't get it. I'm not here to be holding nobody fucking hand.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get this from my own understanding. So if I have to communicate it, then I can communicate it the best way as I can, because I get a lot of backlash for me saying that I'm a Moor within the Aborigine community, right? Now, as far as Morocco right now, I just wanted to kind of just touch on two things, right? I got a couple of basic understanding about the continent move and dealing with the Sumerians and dealing with a little, dealing with some of that historical aspects, right? The reason, like I asked you about Morocco, and somebody in the chat room said that Morocco was America, but the Amaru goes back tens of thousands of years. Amaru was supposed to be a goddess. He was supposed to be a goddess of moves. He's supposed to be a goddess of the Sumerians. If you look at the Sumerians, they have a goddess called Amaru, and that's what they titled this landmass as, a goddess. Now, Amaru, Ki, under my understanding, means earth or means land. So that's why when you see Ameri Ki, spelled with a K-I, that's representing land. Amaru represents the goddess of which this land is named after, and Ki represents land. You know what I'm saying? So I just want you to kind of like, if you can, and I understand the whole thing about that Indian thing, but my thing is with the Indian thing, and me and Kudjo got a little disagreement because he think it's lost in Nino Indios, and I think it was Nino Indios, meaning he was referring to the people in the Caribbean as children of God, and that later got exaggerated into Indio, because remember, Nino means children, in is like in is of God, right? And it was like E-N, D, and O, and they combined all of that and made it into Indians, and started calling people that shit. And then people just automatically represents and think that reference them. My name is the Atantra, so I'm one sprung from the soil that I inhabit. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, I'm just trying to just get a brief understanding, because even when you talk about Africa, Africa is the newer term. I got a map of what we consider Africa to be, and it was called Barbary. And where we see Afriki, we see that where Egypt is at now on that map. And I don't think a lot of people have seen that map before. So I just want to just get a better understanding as far as like Morocco. I know you Ali said that we're in Northwest Africa and we're in Morocco. I know Morocco was just created in 1913. So like when you mention that, are you connecting yourself to that empire over there? Or are you kind of like, connecting yourself to the empire over here? Because, like people will get confused, like them people in Morocco don't represent us over in North America. So that's all I got to say. And I ain't trying to, this ain't got, listen, brother, you do what you do, man. I wish you love and life, man. Definitely. I see you and your sister, you and your wife, man, y'all be holding it down, brother. And I commend you. A lot of these niggas is cowards. They not going to do the things that you do, brother. And I definitely commend you. And I will never come up here and try to disrespect you or, disrespect you and your journey, brother. So I'm going to get my mic on with that being said.
Appreciate that. That was a very long question. Go ahead.
Yeah, before we go on, brother Jamal's, one thing that why the only Aboriginal, Indigenous, Indian, Autochthonous, whatever I rep with, is Autochthonous one, because he's the only one that I know says that he's a Moor, and it's not an issue. You're not debating us about if we're Moors and are we Moors and all that. And two, I see L right there, and to Moors, L means you're a Moor. I don't care what you call yourself. You can call yourself whatever you want. The fact that you got the L there is what gives you the authority to call yourself whatever you want.
Just can I say something to that?
Because you could say that you're a Moor. You could say, no, check this though. I'm not saying you're saying L, which I'm a Moor. Because I see L, doesn't matter who it is. The European says he's L. I'm going to give that European some honors before I give these Negro, Black, Colored, Indian, whoever honors. Because at least that individual recognizes, from my perspective, using L. You could have used anything, but you chose to use that. For whatever reason that you choose, that's up to you. But from my lens, you know what you're talking about just because you have that L.
Okay, can I just touch on that real quick about that? Like, so look, when you look up, when Drew Ali talking, Drew Ali saying, who is the Most High? He said the Most High is Elohim. Now, some niggas think the Elohim is plural, it's not singular, right? But when you look up the Elohim denotes as the God that's in the Hebrew Bible. If you look in the Hebrew Bible, God is Elohim. And then if you break it down, Elohim is Elah. Elah is translated into Allah. And then you break that down, then you see that he's Yahweh, which Yahweh is the fiery man, which is the four elements that creates the tetrametragram, and then later creates the pentagram, which is earth, fire, water, and air, and spirit, which creates the star, or what we assimilate with. So that's how a lot of people, we not Elohim. Man, listen, if you're using G-O-D and you don't know G-O-D came from Elohim, and then you're trying to translate it according to what you need to go back and do some more research, because a lot of people don't understand that. So, and I know that even when you're dealing with the higher self and the lower self, you know what I'm saying, that is lessons that all of these spiritual aspects touch on. Everything is about controlling the beast within and tapping into that higher frequency. You know what I'm saying? So definitely that's why I use L. L represents the Elohim, which represents the gods. So that's why, and I use it in that term. And that's what Drew Ali said. A lot of people, they got all these fucking conspiracies about Drew Ali. They want to talk about he was chewing nails and all this goofy shit. Just focus on what was he about. When you study him, he said love, peace, truth, freedom, and justice. These are all fucking qualities that any person need when they walking on this spiritual plane or this third dimensional plane. Focus on that. Don't focus on the goofy shit. He was in a circus and he did this. And listen, if you look at this man's studies, he was dealing with some other shit that people ain't dealing with today. So you have to ask yourself, he didn't have the internet. Where did he get this knowledge from to bring to the people and tell you exactly who you are? He tells you that the Negro is a four-legged animal. These niggas ain't got no problem with using the term Negro. Now, when I look up the etymology of Moor, it says any person of a dark hue. Now, any person that even when we represent these numerous different empires, we don't call them black because they wasn't calling these people black. You see what I'm saying? That's why if you look over in Korea or in the Pacific, they was calling the people in the Philippines the Moro people. And then they became the Negritos. Then you got some other tribes over they call the Mori people too. You know what I'm saying? And people don't put two and two together because they're looking so much at these fucking Native American tribes and thinking that's your culture and that's exactly who we are. So definitely that's why, you know what I'm saying, I definitely rock. I've been, I came up through not the MSTA of America. I came up studying numerous different Moors, the Hakeem Beys, the Aline Beys, the Tais, the Seers, shit, even Kudjo. So, Uria. It's a lot of brothers who I've studied, and they all connect us back to the Americas and people, they looking at these Native American groups and they're trying to attach themselves to that history as opposed to the history that they took from us that we don't know. So with that being said, brother, definitely if you could touch on the Morocco thing, I would definitely I definitely been intrigued. I'm gonna drop out, man, and definitely, man, I definitely appreciate people coming up here, brother. And like I said, love and light, man. And keep standing on your motherfucking square, bro, because we need more people to do that.
There ain't nothing else to stand on. So,
Brother Sheldon, I see you. Yeah, go ahead, brother Jamal.
I've heard. I'm gonna say his name. I seen a post by Raspy Rawls and Raymond Watson, aka Nesu Wesawanag, aka Two Hawks, aka Two Tears. They Raspy Rawls did a post saying there's no treaty with the United States prior to 1787 that proves that Moors had jurisdiction here in America. Now they'll say shit like that to confuse people because they know people don't know their own history. The reason why there's no treaty with the United States prior to 1787 is because the United States didn't exist prior to 1774. So when you research the diplomatic correspondences between different European countries like the Netherlands or the Low Countries or the Dutch, right? So they have three different names to confuse you. The UK, Great Britain, France, and the Spanish, you'll see that as an example, when they talk about the establishment of the Rhode Island colony in 1666, Great Britain had a treaty with the Sultan of Morocco in 1666 to have free British subjects in Morocco. The same year that European monarch issued a charter for said colony here in America. Right? Then they'll do things like they'll hide the Moorish treaties and call them Indian treaties. As an example, the one in 1610, around that time, 1610 to 1620, with the Lenape so-called Indians. And the Dutch having the fur trade. First of all, the Lenape are Moors. Second of all, when you cross-reference the same exact date with the same exact treaty with the Netherlands and Morocco, you see it exists talking about freeing Dutch subjects in Morocco and having free commerce in Morocco. So the diplomatic correspondences between Morocco and the various Christian monarchs cross-reference with the establishment of what was happening here on the colonies is proof that this is Morocco. Then when you study George Washington's letter to the Sultan of Morocco, certified from the Library of Congress, you'll see where George Washington thanks the Sultan of Morocco for allowing the United States to do commerce within his dominions. The word dominion means land. Where is the United States located? North America. Then, like the brother said, our people date back, or the word Amaru dates back to 10,000 years ago. Well, guess what Noble Drew Ali said how old your flag is? 10,000 years. Right? Then when you cross-reference things like the Barbary slave trade and the Mediterranean slave trade, whenever you hear the word Mediterranean, stop thinking that little sea over there. The word Mediterranean means Middle Earth. What's in the middle of America and Africa, so-called Africa, the Atlantic. That's the Mediterranean. Moors have been trafficking Europeans as slaves, Slavs, in bondage from Europe to present-day Africa to the Americas, which is why, again, the European crowns had to beg the Sultan of Morocco to free their subjects in Morocco and have free trade in Morocco, which resulted in a commercial colony here in America. It's right there. Then when you just simply Google the word Olmec, you'll see where the Olmecs were one of the most ancient civilizations here in America, where their empire extended from the Mississippi Mound Builders all the way down to the Inca Empire, and they'll admit that they're at least 2,000 years old. Then you dig up these stone heads, they got big noses, big lips, turbans and feathers on. They look nothing like the so-called Indians that they show you today. Then again, when you study again the Bureau of Indian Affairs, you'll see that wasn't even created until the 1800s. So who was here before that? Then again, when you look up Montezuma, you'll see he was a dark-skinned person, which in the Marines, they talk about conquering from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, which Tripoli is part of the Moorish Empire, and they talk about conquering it. Then the Marine Corps emblem is the Eagle Globe and Anchor with North America on it, right? Then when you look up the definition of the word Algiers, it means the islands. And then look up Algiers and show me how many islands you see on the continent. How many islands you see on the continent? Right? So all of literally the culture is literally in the language. And going back to the Olmecs, you'll see where Noble Drew Ali said the divine name of Africa is Amexem. When you say Old Amexem, you're talking about the Old Mech. Old Amexem. Right? Then when you cross-reference the etymology of the word African, you see where they admit on etymononline.com that Africa only applied to Morocco, Tunis, Algiers, in the ancient territories of Mauritania, and then later slowly applied to the rest of so-called Africa. That ain't the name of Africa, which is why your prophet said that it ain't the name of Africa. You know, and when you study, like, again, this is where they try to confuse people with the different names of the Sumerians and the Anunnakis and the Saracens and the Kingdom of Ur and Mari. You know, they try to confuse people because over time, anytime you study any political jurisdiction of any kingdom or empire or state or colony, it always changes due to wars. Always, always, always. Look it up. Even the colony of Rhode Island itself, the so-called smallest state in the so-called Union, wasn't this small. It was under the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Even Maine wasn't even its own independent state. That was also part of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. So the political jurisdiction of present-day Massachusetts isn't even what it was back then. So you can't say, and I'm not saying that the brother said that, but because Moors will say this, you can't say that the present-day Kingdom of Morocco that got its so-called independence in 1956 is the only place of Morocco, because there's secret journals of Congress, books on it where they talk about our Sultan being the king, the emperor, and the prince. So how you go from an emperor, king, and prince to just a king? Right? Why is it that the 13th United States is giving these high titles to our people, and they don't talk to any Indian like that? So there's and the reason why I'm bouncing around in history is because our history is so vast. You can spend the rest of your life looking up Moorish history and die and never have a full view of our history, because we are literally an ancient people. When you talk about an immemorial people to time immemorial, it goes so far back that the mind can't go that far. We're too ancient. That's why people get confused with the borders and the jurisdiction and the whatever, because as it states in chapter, I think it's chapter 25 if I'm not mistaken. It's not 25. When Prophet Noble Drew Ali talks about magistrate and subject, and how the glory of the king is the welfare of his people, and the hearts and minds of the people, that is the jurisdiction of the king. So it's not physical borders, it's wherever the people extend out to, that is the jurisdiction of that emperor or king or state or whatever. Just like in the movie with the Marvel movie with Thor, the Asiatic told Thor, "Yo, Thor, Asgard is not a place. Asgard's a people." Which is where people started naming things after them. That's why the name of the land is either after the people or the people after the land, because we are part and parcel. We can't separate from it. Try to separate yourself from the land right now, and I bet you can. Well, Jamal, I'm sitting on a chair. Well, that chair is connected to that house or building you're in, right? Yeah, and then that building is connected to the earth, right? Yeah, so you're still connected. Then what's under the ocean? Sand, which is what? Land. So even the continents are still connected under the ocean.
And I just wanted to add that there's no difference between Amarucan and Al-Moroccan. Jamal is much better at explaining the linguistics and the morphology of the letters, but really the only difference there is the R and the L, and a lot of so-called Asian people don't pronounce R's, they pronounce them as L's, and so-called Puerto Ricans do the same. They don't pronounce R's, they pronounce them as L's. So do you want to explain that?
Yeah. So what she's talking about is the principle as to why they called us Phoenicians, right? The word phone, look it up, it means sound. So you can't be woke and talk about the universe's vibration and not talk about how the word Phoenician means sound, because sound is almost everything, because it's vibration, right? Phone means sound. The suffix Ishan means one skilled in. So since we have, that's why they say the Phoenicians have the most ancient language, and they'll say the Egyptians have the most ancient language, because we're the same goddamn people. So when you study sound, right, because when you study language, which means tongue, which is verbalizing language, and you study script, they have to be studied separately because they're two different sciences. So you'll see where, as an example, Egyptian hieroglyphics is a logographic language. So a logographic language means the images, what becomes, the image itself, what's before it and what's after it, talks about the context or phraseology of that word, meaning how to pronounce it, which is very similar to the English language, where you have root words, which the English language isn't a logographic language. It's an alphabetic language, which is derived from the ancient hieroglyphics. So don't get it twisted. You'll see where the root word and the prefix and the suffix do the same thing as the logographs do in the Egyptian hieroglyphics. So you'll see where the English language is grammatically, because you're dealing with greb and carving, grammatically related to the English language is grammatically related to the Egyptian hieroglyphics. So when you talk about these ancient people and the Amaru and the Anunnaki and the Saracens and the Berbers, they're Moors. And as the brother's showing, Moor is the high priest of Anu, which we're high priests, right? Then when you study simple things like Granada, right? What was Colombia once called?
El Gran Colombia. Oh, Granada, New Granada.
Right? And you'll look up things like Carthage, which is one of our major commercial cities. What's their place called in Colombia? What's it called?
Cartagena.
Say it again.
Cartagena.
Say it one more time.
Cartagena.
So you see how it sounds phonetic? Sounds like Carthage. I'm gonna say Carthage. She's gonna say it in Spanish. Carthage. Hold on. Carthage. Say.
Got brother Sheldon gotta get it. I got brother Sheldon gotta get it.
I just wanted to say something about the Carthage.
No, you gotta. Sheldon's gotta get it, and then.
No doubt.
Go ahead.
I think it was going to say that the brothers told the fact of the Caribbean.
Brother Sheldon gotta get it. Go ahead.
Peace.
Peace, Empress.
Peace.
All the Moors in the chat. I'm here shaking my head because I was gonna go in and, Brother Jamal just went in, so I got nothing to say. I told him the book. The brother asked about Morocco and all that. And I was about to go in, and then Jamal just, and that's why I'm here shaking my head laughing because I got nothing to say. The only thing that I can add to that is in Arabic, the reason why, one of the reasons why Moors also say that the Americas is Morocco is because in Arabic, Morocco means the West, right? And I've checked this with Moroccans. I've been to Cordoba, Spain, because I'm at Germany right now, and I've been to Cordoba, Spain, and I went to a Moroccan restaurant, and I said I'm from Al Maghreb Al Aqsa, and he said, yeah, he knows that's the Americas. There was him. There was another Moroccan when I passed through the French Charles de Gaulle airport going to Paris, and one of the security guards that checks you is from Morocco, and I always didn't have it, and he asked me about it, and I said I'm from Al Maghreb Al Aqsa, and he said, yeah, he knows that's the Americas. So that's pretty much all I can add, because Brother Jamal just said everything else I was gonna say anyway. Other than so yeah, to say peace.
Peace.
That's about it.
Brother I know you had something to put in there, and I'm sure Brother Yusuf got something too. But Brother you out there? Yeah, we hear you.
Earlier, the brother asked a question in regards to and I wasn't really going to put any info out. But when the brother made that comment, the book fell off my shelf. I picked it up on. So the universe told me I had to call it. The name of the book is Discovery of the Origin of the Name of America by European. His name's Thomas and St. B-R-I-S. Published back in the 1888. Now, before I read a short paragraph, I just want to say something. We have Moors doing everything in their powers, physically, spiritually, to let those who don't know know. Once you get to that point, sometimes it washes away, to an extent, the earlier steps in our journeys. When we came across the mixture of truth and fallacy, whether intentional or unintentional or various, it's still our God. Recent past. So I understand why those who may still not be 100% confident in themselves are still shaking. Because you're not taking it from your own brothers who are telling you the truth. And I don't need to get into
On page 35, discovery of the origin of the name of America. Second paragraph. Spanish colonists adopted the native name of America to designate their first settlement on the mainland of the New World. But in those days, the rules of orthography were undefined. And in addition to the numerous errors of printing, names were spelled in any way which the writer considered most appropriate. And hence, we have America, America, not only written as America, Amaraca, cited Hobo, Volume 1, page 324, or Americo, Americo, and Americola, Amerioca, Maraca, Maraca, Moraca, and of course, America. But they added the English word, which Sir Walter Riley, don't know that name, you should look into him, especially for all those who are following these ludicrous conspiracy theories. So, when Sir Walter Riley explains, meant an equivalent of country. Now, the word country is cited from page 95, Relations of Historians. It is customary to add the word land to the names of countries, as to in or our land, whole land, scope
It'd be
land,
better if you go to email because I don't
angle
have to
or ing land, whole or whole land, Deutschland, the proper name of Germany, Japan or country, and the Americans or Americans use the same system. I say this to say, if you don't want to hear it from us today, go back in the past and hear it from them. Then come back. Apologize. It's for love. Hey, could you put that book in the chat, man? I would love to have that book, bro.
Yes, me too.
Please, brother, please. I don't care if you just put the
I was trying
name
to
on
look
it.
at it.
I got one book on my own. The book is called Discovery of the Origin of the Name of America. The author is Thomas, Thomas, D-E, Saint, S-T, Priest, B-R-I-S. It was published, it was enrolled in the entered according to the Act of Congress in the year 1888 by Thomas at the Library of Congress in Washington, and it was published in 1888. If you can get a copy of this book, great source, the finish of it is not the best, but if you will search for PDFs on any university that has a trust, they'll have their ancient their old collections scanned in PDFs. Some places make it a little difficult to print out. If you want a physical copy, you can go to forgottenbooks.com out of the UK. I believe it costs like 8 or 11 notes. And for the price of a Netflix monthly subscription,
I thought you were gonna say 800.
Now that you mention it, I know.
Nothing crazy. I mean, this ain't hardbound, this is paperback. You know, they got the options, so get the most affordable. But what I was saying
It's on Amazon for 11 notes.
I just wanted to add something real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, getting back to Hieroglyphics Dictionary and page 266. There it is. The title of the High Priest of Anu, Palermo Stele. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because you have people running around saying that one comes from Greek, Morus, Maurus, but this is Palermo Stele. Now, if you search Palermo Stele, it means Palermo stone, and it's called that because the stone that had roots on it are in Palermo, Italy, and that stone is called Royal Annals of, I can't even remember the name, Royal Annals, I did a video on it, Royal Annals of, I think it's the first dynasty or whatever, and it goes back to 3200 BCE, at least, because if they have it on the stone there, it has to go back further to write it down. So, this is the root of Morus, Maurus, in Greek, and Greek comes after 3200 BCE. So clearly,
Chronologically, it comes later.
When we went to Egypt or whatever like that to study, after 40 plus years, we got this title as Moors, and obviously we were all dark skinned. So then, whenever we went to Egypt, whenever we went to Europe, and we introduced ourselves, this is what they saw, and so they took that title and made it mean black or whatever, and that's clear. And that's why you see Moor, M-A-U-R, in the Mauryan dynasty, which goes back to 325 BCE. That's in India. All of Northern Africa was called Mauritania at one point.
Yep.
And then you have Societas Republicanas El Moricanos Estados, which is the Americas. So anybody trying to tell you that Moor means stupid or Moor means black and it goes back to the Greece, it doesn't. It goes back at the very least, to 3,200 which is on the walls of Egypt. That means High Priest Spanish. So that's all I want to add. I got to split to the gym. Peace and love, Morris.
Peace.
Peace and love, Morris.
Peace.
Great building. All right, Jamal. All right, Empress.
Peace.
All right. Peace, Kudjo. We'll build soon.
So even when you look up the root word, the root of the word more, M-O, you'll see where, of course, vowels are interchangeable, and of course, in our ancient scripts, we didn't have vowels. But you see where Ama in the so-called Cherokee language means water. You see where marine, M-A, the root word M-A, which is M-O or M-U or M-I, means water, as in marine biology, or the United States Marines, who's known for their amphibious landings. And of course the word moor, as in mooring a ship, and of course all of it references to water. Even the word mystic, right? Which you are 70% water. And then of course when you're dealing with the word mystic itself, as in Islamic mysticism or us being mystics or us being high priest, you'll see where the word mystic, M-Y, which Y is a vowel, don't let them teach you that it's not. You'll see M-Y is really M-U. Then you look up the Phoenician or logograph or script or alphabet for the letter M, you see where it looks like moving water. The reason why the word mystic means to change is because it's in reference to water. Water is always moving and changing, at least living water is. Just like you're always moving and changing and growing and developing. Same thing as the water itself. So even from we can deal with linguistics, we can deal with even the ancient African proverb from the raging waters of Nun, N-U-N, which is really M-O-M, mom, came Atum, the sun, which gave S-O-N, which gave names to all things. So even in the African Kemetic philosophy of the birth of the universe, you're a Moor. From the raging waters of Nun, you're a Moor. You came from, your mother birthed you. So you're a Moor. It doesn't matter how you try to flip this. You can deal with super high Kemetic philosophy, or you can deal with the low vibration of the physical plane, and either way, you're a Moor. Swampy land is called moor, or moorshland, or moorshland. So you can't escape it by either definition of the word moor, which none of the definitions mean black. I don't even know if Kudjo's still here. I don't see his thing anymore. Let's see. Oh yeah, moist.
I put that. I found that book too. I put it in the back check.
Yeah. So let me just wrap up these affidavits real quick. So yeah, that's why I identify as a Moor, not an Indian. All of that stuff.
Just to say that you're a Moor, it doesn't take away from you being Aboriginal and indigenous to this land.
Yeah, let me add that real fast. So this is House Resolution 1203 from the state of Georgia, right? That's the seal from the state of Georgia. It says, whereas Moorish Americans, whose ancient forefathers are the mothers and fathers of the human family, so we're talking about ancient time, we're talking about BC time, standing these days as a comity of descendants from the ancient Moabites and Canaanites who were permitted by the old pharaohs of Kemet to traverse from East Africa and later formed kingdoms extending from the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa and the Atlantic islands onto the present-day continental Americas. And whereas the Moorish Americans are teaching their people their true nationality and divine creed, that they may become better citizens and know they are not Negroes, colored folk, black people, nor no Afros, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865. Excuse me. In this era of time, all nations are seeking peace. The indigenous Moorish people of the Americas, they don't say Indian, it says the indigenous Moorish peoples of these Americas. Huh?
I'm just saying we're back.
Oh.
I don't know how that happened. I don't know how that happened. But my computer just shut down and everything.
Wow.
And then I come back on here and you're still on here.
Right. Let me finish this real quick. Right. So I'll read it from the top right there. The Moorish Americans, being aboriginal and indigenous to the territories of North, Central, and South America, have formed a sovereign theocratic government and guided by the command principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice through virtue of the universal right to self-determination, as well as the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Because he began to take over his ancestral state around 1902, right? The heads of Egypt and Holy City of Mecca to return to the United States as the last prophet and founding father of the newly risen nation of Moorish Americans. On January 15th, 1865, slavery was abolished in the United States, with the congressional ratification of the 13th Amendment, and the Moorish Americans, through self-determination, are unfolding as a pure and clean nation. They are who their forefathers were. So Juneteenth is not about no black liberation. It's about the Moors being freed from Rome, just like your prophet taught you. So Moors are aboriginal and indigenous to North, South, and Central America. So by you not saying you're Indian doesn't strip that status, because the status belongs to your bloodline, not the name Indian. So that's why we file paperwork as Moors, not Indians. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Let me ask you one more thing, Fali. When they start talking about dog in Egypt, I am aware that Egypt was over here, right? But even in Egypt over there, where they claim that these buildings and the Sphinx and all that, they find Dolph emerald tablets in Central and South. Well, I believe it was in Central and South America, right? And they said that, Zacharias Sitchin tried to say that, he came from over there, came back over here with the Olmecs. But my research found that he left from Atlantis, which Atlantis is America, to go over there and build settlements over there. So technically, we would still, America would be older than Egypt and what we consider to be even lands in Africa. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
There's a book I have. to let you know about. It's called the Egyptian Sphinx.
Queen Mu.
Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx.
Queen of Mu, I got that one. Got it.
Yeah, that talks all about how America's older than Egypt and how everything in America predates Egyptian artifacts. So that's definitely something. Like the first 20 pages is just straight fire about how this is pretty much Egypt.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got that book too.
There's also a book called The Ancient Oriental Masonry by
Got that too.
Swinburne. Yeah, on page 25, he'll talk about how America is ancient Egypt or ancient Eagle land. And then you'll see where in Egypt they talk about the unification of Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt symbolized as the eagle conquering the serpent. And then we look at the Mexican flag, it's exactly that.
Yeah, you know what? And you know what, brother? I was wondering, why is that eagle eating the goddamn snake, bro?
It's Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt.
Wow.
Which is the Olmecs, which are Moors.
But that's dealing with the Quetzalcoatl thing and the Nagas and all that.
Yeah.
That snake represents the Nagas or the Quetzalcoatl aspect of it. You know, that's the thing, brother. See, a lot of people who that's in the community that I'm in, what they do is they look at the Native American culture and think that's our culture. When I tell people, listen, man, we're still cooking foods that go back 600-700 years ago. So if we're the same people as these people, we would still have some of that culture that these people got, which I don't see none of it.
Some of it. Let me explain it a little bit, right? So what they call them Eastern woodland tribes. We ain't no woodland nothing. Yes, there's jungle out here and we lived in the woods, but we ain't woodland nothing. Right? So you'll see, the so-called medicine men, well, they'll have 7 at a drum. They're showing you the circle 7. Because there's 7 people at a drum. The drum is a circle, there's 7 people sitting at that circle. Then they'll have, they'll have this circle thing on their left arm. It has a cross on it and it's 4 different colors. They're talking about the 4 seasons or the 4 elements. That is Moorish culture. They just dumbed it down. Like really, really dumb. You know what I'm saying?
The 4 elements would be fire, water, earth, and wind, right?
Yeah. It's just that's not what they're teaching the so-called Indians. Even with the Haudenosaunee or the Wampum Belt, those 5 symbols represents the 5 titles of nobility, not no tribes. And the tree, the center of it represents the Ali, the peace. But they tell you it's just the tree of peace and that's it. As if it's just some Indian crap when it's not. And even the Hiawatha Wampum Belt, aligns with the story of how Allah will always send us a prophet because, in the so-called Indian culture, they talk about, Prophet Dakanawida, which they don't talk about because they talk about Hiawatha, which Hiawatha was a disciple of Dakanawida, which they didn't want to listen to him because he had a speech impediment. When he was talking about, hey, there's going to be some Europeans some pale-skinned people coming over here trying to fuck with our shit, so we need to unite, and they didn't want to hear it from him. When meanwhile, his name literally means the 2 flowing rivers, which represents your Kundalini energy in your body, rising to your pineal gland. Which all of that.
So when let me ask you, when you dealing with the Kundalini, you talking about that is where the Jews stole that whole Kabbalah and all that.
But hold on. Remember when we just talked about the Olmecs, right? And Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, and you talk about the Naga. The Naga is the serpent. That serpent represents the Kundalini energy flowing up your spine. So it ain't no Jewish nothing.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha. But that's where they stole it from. And
Right. It's more science.
We look at that. No, I'm sorry. What's this?
No, just tell me.
She was saying it's more science.
Yeah, it's exactly what you see. If you look on my logo, you'll see what we consider these to be the Sumerians or whatever you want to call them. They got feathers and turbans on it, and they got that tree of life. You see, they got that tree of life next to it, right? Where they get the Kabbalah from, which is where the Hebrews get Yahweh from. Yahweh ain't nothing but a symbol for fire, earth, water, and air, which is YHWH. And then they translate that to Yahweh. That's why when I looked up the term Elohim, it translated into all of that. And lastly, Yahweh.
Hold on. It says it in the Bible that we're made out of fire, earth, water, and air. Just like in the Quran, it says, you know, in the Bible and in the Quran, Allah made us, or God made us out of clay. There's your earth. Then it'll say, Allah breathed His Spirit into us. There's your air, right? Then we're made out of carbon. There's your fire. Then it'll say, you know, you were made from coagulated blood cells. There's your water.
And last, the spiritual term,
which is the
that
breath.
would be the cat. That was the breath, which would be the star. That's what the star comes from. Like I said, the geometrigram would be the 4 elements, and the pentagram would be the 4 elements plus the breath and the spirit, like you said, the breath, which will be the breath.
Just to also comment on your logo, if you look up Zoroastrianism, you'll see where that's where Rasta gets, you know, the Rastafari. That's where it's from. This ain't no modern stuff. You know, when you look up the Anunnaki or the Sumerians, they look just like the Zoroastrianism, because just like the story of the Ganawida talking about we need to come together. Every single prophet came with the same message. We're just the dumbasses not listening.
Oh, they say that the Olmec is the Anunnaki. And I be telling these niggas that, they be laughing. Oh, where'd you get that from? Like, bro, it's like they say that Dolph was an Anunnaki and Dolph was rolling with the Olmecs. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that would make the Olmecs the Anunnaki.
It's because when you say Anunnaki, when you say Olmec, when you say Saracen, when you say Sumerian, when you say Phoenician, you're saying Moor. So of course the Moors are rolling with the Moors. You know, if you look up the I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's GNAWA, if I'm not mistaken. Those people in Morocco, darker than me. They're Moors.
The Berber people got connections to the Cherokees and the ancient Basque people, as
they're
well
Moors.
as the Minoans, are descendants of us, and they spoke the form of language that's called Nawada. Nawada defines in Central America. Nawada actually is older than Maya, and I was trying to tell, like, Nawada actually comes from Peru. It comes from what they call Kukaki. Kukaki is where Lake Titicaca was, was one of the oldest civilizations in the Americas. A lot of people don't even know about. When you talk about Supe Peru and talk about all these different places, these places are older than the pyramids that's in Central and South America, or the structures that's coming from that landmass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if you're aware of that, but yeah, I'm kind of like
I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware of that specifically, but if you look up the Inca and you look up their fez, you'll see Incas had fezes, which you're dealing with Peru.
Got you. In Peru, and like I said, some of my studies, I found out that the land was called, or the goddess, you talk about Lemuria and Mu, or whatever, her name was Amaru Marie. Now, what do we see in Peru? Amaru, Peru, right?
Yeah.
But then you can go back and you can see that the Toltecs, that they say that the Toltecs are the Sumerians, because you find the Sumerians, or you find that so-called, some of the ancient Sumerian pictures with the bird and eagle holding a bag and all that shit you find in Central and South America.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely, I'm definitely on point with that. And like I said, that's when, see, my vast science go beyond some 5 civilized tribes, or beyond just some fucking Native American culture.
Because again, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you, but again, it's not 5 civilized tribes. They're codifying the 5 titles of nobility that extended from North to South America. It's just codifying it. Our history is so vast that you'll die and still never have a full grasp of our entire history, because it's impossible. So what they do is they minimize it. Every time you hear them talking about, the 5 civilized tribes, or this tribe and that tribe, they're minimizing how vast our empire is, because people don't stay stagnant. People don't. People have been traveling the planet since forever. And if you look at the rivers, the flow of the oceans, it's impossible for people to at least not get lost and end up over here. You know, it's impossible. Literally, you have to be a retard to not end up over here from over there, and from over here to over there. because the natural current of the Atlantic Ocean it flows from Europe, then down to the northwestern coast of Africa, then it flows all across the Atlantic, all the way up to the islands, which is why the hurricanes take the same path, and then goes all the way back up past Florida, back to Europe. It's the natural water flow of the ocean. So ships have been taking that route since forever. And if you look at ducks, I swear to God, if you study just water itself and look at the animals, they take those natural currents all the time. You know,
Gotcha.
it's impossible for our people to not have been here already.
And since we were sick, of course.
I mean, it's just difficult to translate amongst, you know, the individuals
Who won't listen. It's really just they won't listen.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, but yeah, I definitely love the way you broke that Tupac thing. I was about to say that. I was like, man. I said, yeah. I mean, even the thing with the Lenny Lenape thing, you know, I've been going back and forth over that, showing people that.
Yeah.
And people just like it's all crickets. It's nothing. Nobody's challenging that.
They can't. What are they gonna say? Well, not and then that's it.
Yeah.
They got no
That's
proof.
what I'm saying.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate you, man, what you're doing, man. Hopefully everything go well. Man, I mean, I'm quite sure you're going to stand in this square until this shit is all said and done with. And I've been definitely rocking with the channel for a minute, man. So definitely.
Appreciate that.
No doubt, bro. No doubt. Definitely appreciate the knowledge too, man. Maybe one day I can definitely get a bill with you, man, and get some of this stuff down to where we can record.
I mean, honestly, it sounds like you got it down to me. That's what it sounds like to me.
Exactly. Yeah, but you know what though? When you translate, listen, bro, the L's projected it to me. This ain't something that I just one day embarked on a journey to try to say, oh, I'm gonna do this. I started off with the Hakeem thing. Hakeem thing had a video. Probably, I don't know how old that fucking video is, but he talking about all of this stuff. And he putting it in a nutshell. Like you said, even they would say Maury, and even when you said the high priest of Anu, name was Maya. Maya. You know what I'm saying? Which we could translate that into a lot of different things because of the how do you say what's the name, the vowels and everything. These vowels are interchangeable. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like we see Morocco wasn't spelled with an O originally, it was spelled with an A.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? We see Alabama, which is Alabama.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? You know, so there's a lot of connections that people they look over. And also like you know, I went back and started looking at a lot of these what the hell is shit they had in the early 1900s, these American World Fairs and all of these buildings that was here that they tore down, and we still see these ancient buildings that's still here today. And you know, Indians building this type of shit, and I'm telling you that.
Can I add on real quick?
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
In Cuba, in so-called Dominican Republic, and so-called Puerto Rico, Borican, and so-called Colombia, all of these places have a Moro castle.
Literally called that.
It literally means castle of the Moors. It ain't called castle of the Indians. It ain't called castle of the Arawak. It's not called castle of the Caribs. It's the Moorish castle. Or the Moorish fort. And the Taínos, their chief goddess is called Atabey. B-E-Y. We can't...
And even when you say the forts, so when we dealing with these star forts that they just went over and covered, like the fucking Statue of Liberty, which is a goddamn fort, or that would be sitting on a bay, like Pelican Bay, or not even Pelican Bay. When you talk about Alcatraz was a trading port. That wasn't no prison at first. And that sits on a bay, which we know is what they call a star fort today. You know what I'm saying? And you see these star forts at the mouth of all these rivers. You know what I'm saying? And you know, that's something I found interesting because when I was studying Lemuria and Mu, they said that the people from Mu had fucking forts sitting on the mouth of all the rivers, and they used to leave. They said they used to leave for years and then come back. You know what I'm saying? find that science in it is more science, like, or more history. You can't. You will be hard pressed to try to find that history without crossing the con with the Moors. Like you said, even when you're dealing with Montezuma, when they say from the shores of Tripoli to the halls of Montezuma, you'll find in ancient texts they will say that that fucking Mexico was part of the Andalusian Empire.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? The Andalusian Empire, which, you know, we know Spain was called Andalusia. You know what I'm saying? And all of these empires will be part of what we consider to be the triangle trade, in which they took over all these trades and people don't even understand it.
Can I talk about that real fast? Real fast.
Hold on, quick second. Brother Yusuf. He's there.
He's back.
I think you're muted. You might be busy. But
Eating that popcorn.
what we were saying was that we need Ahanu El stop playing with them Indians and be on your birthright. It's time now.
It sounds like it to me.
Stop playing with them Indians. Them Indians and all those people stuff that you're going on, they're not about uplifting their nation. They're about playing views and likes and hearts and all this BS. You know what I mean? Like, how come they can't talk like how you talk? Lotus, all them people. How come they don't talk like you talk? You're Indian, you're Aboriginal, you're indigenous. What the hell's wrong with them? This ain't no rocket
I
science.
get rejected too, though. I get rejected. You know, Chief Holiday is my motherfucking brother. And I know you and Chief Holiday, y'all don't see eye to eye. That's my brother. And we go over a lot of this stuff too. And he's in the grids with a lot of stuff that, I say, we have our disagreements with, though. That's still my brother, though. But however it go, I get it all the time, brother. These jokers isolate me with it because I talk about this stuff. Because, like I tell them, listen, I learned about this shit from Moors. So you think that I learned about this shit from Moors, who obviously was bright individuals. Like, what's the sister name? Valera L. Yo, she is like one of the most intelligent people I've ever met or ever even came across, brother. And you think she don't know the difference between a goddamn Indian and a Moor? Like, and I'm sitting up there thinking, like, wait, listen, she know too much. Like, she, you know what I'm saying? And she's still talking about us here in this land. And people get a lot of this stuff confused because of what's out there now. They looking at a lot of these treaties. They looking at, I just found out that the Choctaw and all of these so-called 5 civilized tribes had a treaty with Albert Pike, which Albert Pike is the motherfucker that made the KKK. And he's also the motherfucker who made all of the Scottish Rite secret societies, which all these secret societies that
Moors sold out though, right? Don't they say? But they say the Moors sold out, right?
Bro, listen, I'm about to do a bill about that, about how Albert Pike, all these treaties, a lot of these treaties were shot with Albert Pike, man. You know who Albert Pike is, and they ain't talking about, it's talking about these tribes and these people who had so-called, I want to say Slavs or whatever, because you know that they try to say us as prisoners of war, they try to use that synonymous with the term Slav or slave. You understand what I'm saying? Which a lot of people don't look past. They think that, because you see slave, they're talking about Europeans in that case, but they try to branch us all in the same, and you know what I'm saying, in the same
status.
But if some of us was captured, you're the same status, exactly. So, I'm definitely.
Can I talk about some sellout stuff real quick? Real quick, right? So, again, there's a so-called chief out here, Raymond Watson. He claims that his native name is Nessuwissawanag, aka Two Hawks. He claims that he's from here, Aboriginal and indigenous, and claims that these pale-skinned people are foreigners, right? They came to his land. But then he'll accept a position of authority from them. Does that make sense?
You asked me that, or
I'm for anyone to answer. Does that make sense? Because you talked about how some of our people can get confused with all of this information. So if we ask them simple shit like that, Can a foreigner appoint you to any position of power on your land? The answer should always be no.
No, that's like a friend of a friend coming in your house telling you what to do.
Yeah.
A friend of a friend can't come in your house right now with you and your wife up in there and tell you, yo, man, go sit in the corner.
Yeah, so now when you look at this Indian stuff and you see where they accept positions of power, well, there you go. That's a sellout right there. You know, it's not rocket science. How in one breath you're gonna say they're a foreigner, and then this documented evidence with your signature and red thumbprint on a piece of paper where you're accepting that you're commercially known as someone else and taking a position of power from a European. Documented. Red thumbprint, red ink signature, all that.
What did he say when you said that to him? I'm quite
No, he never addressed it directly. He was saying that his Indian council agreed to have him accept that position. Either way, you accepted it from a colonist. You know what I mean? So he tried to hide it as if the tribe had some type of authority, which I'm about to show you right now because I got the paperwork right here. This is it right here. This is the appointment from Governor Gina Raimondo. It's January 4th, 2016, so this ain't no ancient stuff. So the stuff I was talking about on my Instagram earlier from the 1880 Narragansett Indian Roll fucking Corporation of Indians, it still applies today, and here's proof. So it shows the connection from 1880, the sellout of 1880, all the way up to the Joint Memorandum of Understanding of 1978, reminding you of the sellout, that's why it's a memorandum, all the way up to 2016, and this guy's still alive today. And Gina Raimondo still governor of that colony, of said colony today. Mr. Raymond Watson, dear Mr. Watson, it gives me great pleasure to appoint you to the Outdoor Recreation Council pursuant to Executive Order 1601 to serve at the pleasure of the governor. Right? Then hold on, wait. Then right here. This is the Nahetik Nahigansett Nation, right? See, they always try to hide that bullshit with the nation tribal crap, right? Official proclamation and letter of approval and acceptance. Nesu Wasuwanag, you see where he tried to make it free national, right? Nesu Wasuwanag, commercially known as Raymond L. Watson. So now you're agreeing to human trafficking and slavery. You see that? Nesu Wasuwanag, commercially known as Raymond L. Watson, in possession and receipt of an official certificate of engagement from the office of Governor Gina Raimondo for the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations under Executive Order 1601 for an official appointment. Right? Appointed by some foreigner to the Outdoor Recreation Council of the state of Rhode Island, the Nahantik Nahigansett Nation, by authority of the Nahantik Nahigansett Nation Shakimo, right? Wisemore Council approves the acceptance of the engagement of Nesu Westwanab. And then they have a bunch of crap with all these names, right? Hereafter known throughout, blah, 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 to the entire world as Nesu Westwanab, blah, 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 blah. See that? Red thumbprint, red signature. Who does that? Moors. So, and again, he agreed to be commercially known as something that he's not. And accepts the appointment to serve at the pleasure of someone else. So there you go. There's the sellout. Then they try to cover up the sellout by saying, yeah, our fake nation agrees and accepts it. Why?
They get a benefit. Right?
Then hold on. There's one more thing right here. just to reaffirm what I just said. This is from the Rhode Island, State of Rhode Island Providence Plantations Public Information Division, Office of the Secretary. It says right here, name. Under it says Raymond Watson. Then it says elected or appointed. Then it says appointed. Then it says appointing authority. How is she an authority on your land? Then it says Governor Gina Raimondo. Then it says term of expiration. Serves at the pleasure of the governor. Then his signature again. So who does he work for? The Aboriginal people or this colonist? And then don't say the Aboriginal people, because when I showed you the Joint Memorandum of Understanding, not you, but the people, on my Instagram of 1978, which you can just look up, it says the Narragansett Tribe of Indians is known as a Rhode Island corporation. How are you Aboriginal and indigenous to Rhode Island when Rhode Island didn't even exist prior to 1666. And then Roger Williams didn't even come here prior to 1636. And the original name of Rhode Island only applied to Aquidneck Island, which is now Newport. So you're Aboriginal indigenous to where again? Because this ain't fucking Rhode Island. But there's the sellout right there. And people like him know that the people aren't going to go past that document to 1978 and then go past that to 1880 to see the initial sellout and connect that to the Bureau of Indian Affairs War Department and how they're wards of the state. And then people like him will lie and say the Snyder Act of 1971 made Indians citizens of the United States. Then, of course, we're in the United States, a federal corporation. But then when you study, again, that case law from 1973, it will still admit that Indians are wards of the United States. Why? Because you ain't fucking Indian. And the United States ain't land. So you can't be Aboriginal and indigenous to the United States. Just like you can't be Aboriginal and indigenous to Rhode Island because the name of this land is not Rhode Island. This is not the Isle of Rhode. This ain't Europe. But I digress.
And all of that is under Title V USC, the Alaskan Indian Act.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that.
It's all
like
crap.
even all of these tribes. Are you aware of that? The Alaskan Indian Act?
No.
Check it out. It's Title 25 USC. And if you look under that, all of the tribes, they're all under the Alaskan Indian Act. And they're all under Native Americans, which Native Americans mean fucking United States citizens. You know what I'm saying? If you go back and look, it says Native Americans mean United States citizens. They're citizens of the United States, and their land is to be distributed by the United States.
Held in trust.
Certain people are saying that their Native Indian, Native American, all these fictions, those people can't be your brother if they're an enemy. Because them saying that makes them an enemy to the cause of uplifting our people. Because the same way that you just did some research and found that out, they can't say they can't do that either.
Mm-hmm.
The same way Hakeem Bey did his research and found out whatever he found out that he threw out, just because he found it out, it's not like nobody can't go find that stuff out. And people who deliberately choose not to, either they're under some type of sorcery, they're supremely incompetent, or they're ancient.
That's a fact. I think a lot of brothers, a lot of these individuals think that these statuses, or just to be recognized as being an Indian, is just one thing, and they don't understand that goes into a whole nother jurisdictional thing, which you are being distributed from a fucking corporation, which is the United States. Like you said, and I'll go back to the War Department.
It's warship. It's wardship status.
Wardship.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, no doubt.
And can I add real quick? Because, we'll say we're not black because black is an adjective. So is Aboriginal. Aboriginal is also an adjective. Indigenous is also an adjective. And then you can't say you're Aboriginal and indigenous to America and then leave it at that. Because all you said was Aboriginal and indigenous to America. You mentioned two adjectives and a noun and a conjunction, right? So where in America? Because if you say Brazilian as an example, the people of Brazil will just say, I'm Brazilian. By them saying they're Brazilian, that status alone means they're Aboriginal and indigenous to America because Brazil is part of America. When people say they're Mexican, it's already implied that they're Aboriginal and indigenous to America because Mexico is in America. So when you say Aboriginal and indigenous to America, where? You still have to mention the nation. Where? Because you can't say United States. Because that wasn't created until 1774. So you can't say you're Aboriginal indigenous to the United States of America. So again, you have to identify the nation, which is the noun, which the noun or the nation is Moor or Moorish or Moroccan, all dealing with linguistics. And for the idiots that say, well, you're not fully a Moor because you're Moor-ish. The suffix ish means having the characteristic of or pertaining to. So when you say Moor-ish, you're turning the noun Moor into an adjective to describe how or what type of American you are. So Moor-ish American. Just like grammatically, a Mexican wouldn't say I'm a Mexico. They would say I'm a Mexican. adding the suffix an, meaning having the quality of, or deriving from, or having the characteristic of someone from Mexico. You know, so it's all grammar, and our people don't want to respect it for whatever reason. Just so they can just deny
Well,
it.
the ish thing is connotative, which came
No,
after.
no. Again, the ish is a suffix, which just means
No. Excuse
having.
me. What people think ish is now is the connotative.
Oh yeah, they think ish means
A
kind
little,
of, but not
yeah.
really. When that's not what it means. It's a
denotative
suffix
meaning of
that
it.
means of or pertaining to. It turns nouns into adjectives. So the noun more, when you add ish, it turns it into an adjective. So you would say that architecture is more-ish because it's not a more. It has the characteristic of Moorish culture. You wouldn't say that cup is a more. You would say that cup looks more-ish because the way it's designed or something like that. You know, you wouldn't say, oh, that cup is Moorish, which means it's kind of not, but not really a more. That's stupidity.
And in the definition, it talks about linking you to nationality. SH.
Sorry, let me just get Brother Azim. I know if you ask. Brother Azim, you there? No, they stay playing with your shit. Playing with it right now. Yeah, it's a lot of this. I'm good.
Real quick, but the word Indian too, like, real quick, because I know I've seen people, and I've seen on other videos, people talk about the word Indian coming from the Latin phrase of, I forgot how they make it portray, but they're trying to say it makes it seem as the people from God, or the God people, or whatnot.
Indio.
But if you just literally type, because when we say Los Dios, if you just Google, you can just look simply Google without God in Latin, it'll pop right up. It'll show you that that's where they got Indian from. They just connect. Sin Dios. Because they're right there. All you gotta do is just type it, write it in.
Oh, can I add to that real quick? Let me add that real quick. There's something called the Great Awakening. It happened after the Willie Lynch letter of 1712 and after the Christian Black Codes of 1724. It's when Indians and blacks started proudly claiming to be Christians. There you go, right there. It's called the Great Awakening. Look it up.
Those without God.
Those without God. Why? Because they stripped you of your God and put their God on you. So you're without God. Which again goes back to the following the idol gods of Rome. The word God is a verb. It means to invoke. Idle means to stay still. So you're using idle words. You're using words that take you nowhere. That's why you award again. And then they have you going to powwows. POW means prisoner of war. And then you're amazed by it. So it's powwow. Wow, I'm a prisoner of war. Wow. How do we not get this shit? Because they'll write about us and say there were savages, right? They'll say we're savages. And then they'll admit that we coin money. How you a savage and you coin money? How you a savage and you entering into a treaty?
Brother Azim, you there? Brother Azim, they're messing with your stream, bro. They're playing with you.
Hey, say that powwow thing again, man.
Come on with the powwow.
You know what I'm saying?
Literally, the acronym POW. Like you'll often see a black flag with a face and a bandana on it under the Star Spangled Banner. That is the prisoner of war flag. It will say POW right on it. So again, POW means prisoner of war. And then the word wow means to be in excitement or to be in allurement or whatever. And again, the Bureau of Indian Affairs is from the Office of Indian Affairs from the War Department. So they're telling you you're a prisoner of war. Then they have you dancing in a circle, literally wasting your time doing nothing, and everyone is in amazement by it. Like, wow, look at these prisoners doing nothing. Wow, look at them wearing feathers, and look at them saying that they're one with the universal spirit, yet they're killing cows to make teepees, which don't even make sense.
Wouldn't that be the snake?
Oh yeah, then Juju said, you know, it's the snake eating its own tail, going in a circle. You're self-destructing. You ain't doing nothing. Then you're gonna say, yeah, this is our land, and you're gonna go to Brown University and march and pray instead of doing an adverse possession, instead of filing an allodial claim to your ancestral estate according to the rights of indigenous people. And then you're gonna reference things like Black Soul Dictionary because you know the people don't know about it.
And he still hasn't sued?
Come on. These people are literally playing powwow games, nigger games. And then, you know, these same Indians will admit that on the birth certificate, it went from so-called Indian to so-called colored, which is the same status that Noble Drew Ali told you we're not. At what point did you miss it? Oh, I forgot you're part of that 1880 roll of sellouts, and you only get the benefit by selling out. That's why you see an appointment to by a European governor on these people claiming to be Aboriginal and Indigenous. Nowhere on this planet can a foreigner appoint anyone to any position of authority in their own land unless they are a sellout. There was I forgot exactly where, but somewhere in some so-called Muslim country where this guy was basically fighting against British colonialism, and then the British people were like, hey bro, if you stop fighting against us, we'll recognize you as the Sultan. He was like, nah, fuck that, and fought them anyway. How you gonna make me the Sultan on my land, stupid? You know, that's what true nationalists do. They don't accept positions of bullshit authority from some colonist.
Right.
That's why Noble Drew Ali put Sultan Abdulaziz in front of the Quran.
How's your time, brother Jamal? I know you're on schedule. I know you're on a schedule today.
Oh yeah, we got like another 30 minutes.
All right, cool. All right. Brother Razim, you there? Brother Razim, you're unmuted. They're playing with you hard. Brother Hanu, you got anything to add on?
Yeah, real quick. Hey, all right. Another question, right? Is dealing with the Moabites and the Canaanites, right? I kind of think that history of the Moabites and the Canaanites was exaggerated and changed because you know a lot of people when they get into Moab, they say that these people was how they say they was practicing incest and a lot of other stuff. Can you elaborate like a little bit on that? Because I've also heard Moab is Maya.
Hold on. Let me go in before you keep going, because first of all, there's a Moab in Utah here in North America. Second of all, history repeats itself. There's I forgot who else. Oh, people in New York. Some people in New York brag about sleeping with their relatives. So it's we're dealing with the same negative energy that we keep emitting from ourselves. You understand what I'm saying? Because we don't know who we are. If we had some type of moral principles, we would know, hey, maybe I shouldn't have sex with my sister. But since the colonists have convinced us to agree to this negative nature, that's where you still see Moabites sleeping with their family members to this day and bragging about it like that's just cool.
So the point being that if we're saying that we're Moors, we take the good with the bad.
Yep. We can't escape our culture, period.
Escape the shit stuff that we did, and only acknowledge the glorious stuff.
Yeah, no.
So we only end up playing ourselves.
Yep.
Because everybody knows the negative stuff about the Moors, which is why they don't want the Moors to get their stuff together.
Yeah. Because talk about ruthless. Talk about someone that was feared. You think this is fear when it comes to our people and these Europeans? Nah. It was a different level when we was in charge. That's why Noble Drew Ali said, hey, when you get back in power, be kind to these people. Yeah.
Because we are cutthroat. Our problem is that we're doing that cutthroat stuff to our own.
Yeah.
I think the brother Mike is. I see that the Canaanite god, the Canaanites had a god called El. And if you look at El got 5 on the right, 2 on the left, and 5 on the I forgot exactly which way. hell. And they got five, he got his hands, he got 5 fingers up and 2 fingers up. And I just found that to be real interesting along my studies, and I'm like, wow. I said, God damn.
Can I add something? Remember that the version, the theory or the thought process behind the word God now is not the same as back then. Right now, we're still using the word God as a noun, and it's not. It's a verb. So when you see these depictions of these so-called gods, it's just they're using, like Taj says, an anthropomorphic or a human image to relate to your mind the energies of Goding. You know. So as an example, in hieroglyphics, they'll have the owl. You know, the owl's not a god. It's the owl's ability to see at nighttime, right? Which represents seeing the unseen. That is the God power of the owl that we also have. It's called insight and intuition. Not that we fucking hominis dominus, holy moly, pray to an owl. You understand what I'm saying? So our entire ideal or idea of God now is completely taken out of context and made literal when everything about life itself is not literal. Even you're looking at my flesh right now. That is not me. That's just a lower vibrational representation of my spirit on this plane. So you can't even say that this is me. Which again, this is where we get the principle of I am that I am. Because this ain't me. Jamal isn't me. My spirit is me. You know, so our idea and ideals of God are completely different than what our ancestors were. Again, hieroglyphics is a logographic language. None of it is literal.
Brother Razim, you there?
Yeah, I'm finally able to get through, man.
Peace,
I
brother.
do everything.
Peace.
Peace. I see we connected Voltron right now. What's up? What we doing, man? What we doing? You know they hate unity, man.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I respect what the brother Jamal Abdullah Bey is pushing for Rising Moors organization and as well as Kudjo with Cannon Land. It's very important as a representation of what it looks like. I respect so much what you gentlemen are doing for the Moorish community because that's one thing I feel that the key element that a lot of our people forget what unity looks like. Because we've been propagandized with what this unity looks like. You know what I mean? With Hollywood, with music industry, with, you know, just in general, the culture that these Zionist Jews created, you know, and call it black culture. You know, and what I try to tell my people is that this culture has nothing to do with the quote unquote the culture. So, you know, I try to tell people that, you know, when you look at our real ancestors pertaining to us before, you have to look at it in its true context. You know, not what Hollywood depicted as, not what the music industry depicted as, because these things, you know, sensationalize, you know, the ignorance of our people at its lowest state. Because once you, and a lot of our people have conversations with pertaining to our history being born, they, you know, reject it, not so much that, you know, you have some that know the history and, you know, refuse to acknowledge it or stand on their square, you know, which is really they're just cowards. And then you have those that are oblivious to the history and they have no clue, but they are okay. They're not open-minded. You know, as for myself, I was any different level of the hidden history until I got to the root of it. Because once you get to the root of it, which is being a Moor, and you see that the worldwide empire, not just here in North America, you know, it breaks all the spells. It literally breaks all the dark magic spells that, you know, these people use your more science. And
Absolutely.
and I'm still gonna have a bunch of levels.
Flip for you.
And
Yeah. A.
and that's what the prophecy foretold. What is going on today. With every movement of wars that was created, whether it was Black Panthers or whatever group it was, it always got infiltrated in the same manner and broke up, and then propagandized through Hollywood as some kind of gang or terror organization. Because once they put these labels on you, usually that's because they were doing something that was going to free their people, and that's the pseudo how you say, like a pseudo title warfare. When they label you, because they know they already programmed us
It's
since
slander.
birth, since elementary, pre-K. Right, slander. That's the word I'm trying to use. I stand corrected. And yeah, so once they program us with these certain slanders and terms and associated with something bad or negative, so all they got to do is say, hey, that's a gang, hey, that's terror, and automatically that programming kicks in to the individual, especially Moors, unconscious Moors. They're gonna disassociate themselves with it because they're gonna say, oh, I don't want to be labeled a terrorist. I don't. It's just like the Zionist Jews when they did the whole anti-Semitic, and it's crazy when they call when a Moor calls those Zionist so-called Jews out on what they're doing to the world. They'll say that Moor is anti-Semitic, but how can you be an anti-Semite when a Semite is a Moor? But they know a majority of our people don't know the real history and have no connection to the Moorish Empire worldwide. So, and that's why they deliberately dissect our history and push this multi-culture and blend it all in one pot as a separate Mexicans or Jamaica, Haiti or Haitians, when they don't know how these people were part of an empire, one culture. So, and even before Europeans were able to, infiltrate our empire and grasp it from within, we were already infighting in a lot of things that before the Europeans even set the continent or set, Moors was already, fighting in, what do you call it? When you annex, like your empire, when you annex it, and you become little, pieces, whatever, and they were spread out all throughout the earth plane, and that's why Allah always sent us prophets to redeem our people, because once we drop the ball as a society, as a nation, your Creator always gonna send you a redeemer, But like the brother Abdullah Bay said earlier, are hard-headed, and it says it in all the holy books. We're the most hard-headed fucking people on planet Earth. Once we have our mindset on something, that is part of our nature of being God. But if we're not balanced and harmonized, it could be, it could work against us. You know what I mean? And
our own demise, self-destruction.
A formidable enemy. Right. And that's what made our people formidable as warriors. Because if you look back in our history, we were ruthless, man. We didn't play no fucking games, okay? We laid down the law, period. We stuck to what the universal creator wanted it to be done. Like I studied about Genghis Khan, which was a Moor as well. And this guy, he didn't play no games at all. I've heard much things about him in history pertaining to, how he ran, his empire based off of Moorish law, and he was no joke. And when you look at old pictures of Genghis Khan, he wore feathers. You know what I mean? He had much garb on. And so you see how powerful our people were.
Can I add on that real fast?
They held.
Just how ruthless we were.
Right. And we let Europeans up in the empire, they were in positions of servitude. They were never in positions of power to where they could, rule the nation. They were never. It's actually fitting
for any European to have ruled. That's just an oxymoron. This planet was left to us to be the guardians. We are literally the guardians of the galaxy, the guardians of planet Earth. And they show all the superhero movies, Infinity War, Guardians of the Galaxy. They show you all that stuff. But if you're not studying a historical aspect of science of more, it'll go way over your head. Like last night, I'm watching Underworld. I don't know if yours are,
Yeah, with the Lycans and the vampires.
We call Underworld. We had a couple of them that came out. Vampires versus werewolves.
Yeah, they were called Lycans.
Right. With vampires versus werewolves, and when I actually looked at even the more science in it, I said, "Oh shit! The werewolves are the European nations, the hybrids that were created, right, to be Slav, called Lycans, right? Because they have, and the vampires were actually the Moors, like because that's how they depicted the movie. Of course, they show you vampires sucking blood, kill people, or whatever. But the symbology is what reigns supreme. So when you look at the symbology of it in the dialogue they're speaking, in that movie, the Underworld Rise Vikings, check this on Netflix, and the Lycans were literally the created a hybrid race, which were which were the Slavics. And the way they depicted the movie, this particular the vampire also, because he was gonna slaughter him, like because they was always at war with the werewolves. You know what I mean? And the werewolves were off in the wilderness, caves and stuff. They were forbidden in the castles and stuff like that. Amongst the we were an elite society. It depends. And so particular Lycan, he was half vampire and half werewolf. And so he could take human form instead of just being in full werewolf form, like the Neanderthal. Instead of being in full Neanderthal form, he been hybrid, like he been he been bred into the form that you see today, where they're not walking on or they're not hairy all over their body. They're they're a little civilized, and they can pop certain things. They could behave themselves or whatnot. And so when you go into the movie, this particular half-breed, half vampire, was still a slave under the vampire.
Brother Nazeem, they're playing around with your stream, and we want to get Brother Jamal to give us last little bit.
You how they show you, but in a form of entertainment. But hello.
Yeah, we got. I don't know if you can hear me, but they're messing around with your stream. But we want to make sure Jamal gets his little input in because he has to go stream. But we'll continue on after. But I'm just gonna mute you for right now. But stay on the thing. Brother Jamal, you there?
Yeah. I kind of wanted to add on his when he was talking about how ruthless our people were, real quick.
Yeah.
So when they show us, when they depict us at the temples, cutting people's hearts out and cutting people's heads off, that wasn't to, give to our God as if we were worshiping and doing human sacrifices. That was, as an example, the punishment for treason, or the punishment for sexually assaulting a minor. Since you want to sexually assault a minor, since you have no heart, we're going to rip it out of your beating chest, show it to the congregation, show it to our people, so that way they know this is what happens when you violate children. Then we're going to cut your head off and let it roll down these flight of steps real quick, to let you know that this is one, what happens when you violate children, and this is two, when you commit treason against your own people. It wasn't just, we're sacrificing to these hominis dominus. Oh my God, there was a full moon or a solar eclipse, and now we got to murder somebody. Nah, it was, this is what the law is. Violate, and you'll be dealt with. This is why they fear the Moors so much. This is why, they came to my house to try to get me to react a certain way, so that way they can label us terrorists, they can label us a domestic threat, and they can label us this and label us, well, not necessarily label us, because they already label us those things, but they need us to give them proof, so that way they can blow it up like, oh, look at what these people believe in, when really it was them initiating things. But since they control the media, right, they know the people are going to believe whatever they say. That's what they do. You know, but once we nationalize and take our positions back, it's a wrap for these people. That's why I told the Moors before, whatever happens to me, whatever they try to do to me, don't let that shit scare you, because that means their strategy is working. If you read the FBI counterintelligence program, you'll see where their job or their goal is to get so-called dissidents or get supporters to no longer support organizations like Rise of the Moors. Which, you know, they'll do certain things like, okay, we'll take these people's cars for no reason, or we'll kick down Jamal's door to put fear in everyone else, because if, you know, some people see me as if I'm this holy moly guy when I'm just a regular human. So they know that. So they say, all right, if we show that we can put hands on Jamal, that's gonna put fear in everyone else. You get what I'm saying? Don't let them do that shit to you. If you read the Willie Lynch letter, it's the same thing. They take the biggest and the strongest, they violate them in front of everyone else to put fear in everybody else. It's supposed to be united we stand, divided we fall. I'm just a division of the Moorish people. So yeah, I would like for you to stand with me, but if I fall, don't think that's the end of the world. Think shit like that is why we need to come together. Shit like that is why we should listen to what Jamal was trying to say. Train, defend yourself, defend yourself. That's why we're nationalizing. That's why we're going this hard against oppression, to end shit like that, to end shit like this. No one should have no colonists come to their house, kicking their door and try to take anyone in the house. That shouldn't be acceptable. That shouldn't even. We should be so feared that that's not even a thought that enters their mind anymore. That's why Noble Drew Ali said these Europeans are not going to stop till they look death in the face. Just like you. Think about yourself. You ain't gonna just walk up to a beehive, and I already know you ain't a word, I'm just saying. You ain't gonna go to a beehive without a bee suit on and start touching it. You ain't doing that without a bee suit. You ain't doing that without protection. You get what I'm saying? So pay attention to when they send the violent fugitive task force to my house. Meanwhile, they have Moors listed as violent people in the black identity extremist thing, because they want us to react a certain way. So be 15 moves ahead of them. Pay attention to what they're doing. Pay attention. And then also pay attention to those Moors making it seem like I did something wrong. I was at home. They came to my house. How am I the guilty one? Pay attention to those Moors, because like your prophet told you, pay attention there, Moors. Your enemies are the ones that ridicule your prophet to the very lowest, and the ones that speak up against your divine and national principles of your temples. One of our principles of our temple is self-defense. Anyone speaking against that is your enemy. Why? Because every single nation on this planet has a national defense force or team or group of people. It's either called a military, a militia, a security force, or, you know, as an example with the president, it's the Secret Service or whatever they're called. Every single nation of people on this planet, every single species has their own defensive force. Even ants. Those ants with those big chompers, that's their defense. Look it up. You know? So just pay attention. You know, counterintelligence is real. There's several representatives, all women, within the United States Congress, all Asiatic, that have told you recently, I'm talking about 2016 to presently, told you counterintelligence program is still active to this day. So this ain't no more conspiracy theory stuff or we believe that COINTELPRO is real. Nope. Go to senate.gov, look up the Church Committee of 1975, if I'm not mistaken, and look up where the senator, something church, his last name is Church, revealed how not only does the CIA have biological weapons, which is how they gave Muhammad Ali Parkinson's, or whatever it's called, but they also deal with the FBI, COINTELPRO, and how real it is, and how since its inception they've been targeting our people. Which its inception was in like 1908 or some shit like that, not 1956 when they started COINTELPRO. It's the inception of the FBI. Which, if you go to FBIVault.gov, they admit to COINTELPRO. So don't think that this is just Moorish conspiracy theory and they're just fucking crazy and they got bucket hats on. No. Pay attention to what everybody's saying. And then pay attention to who's showing you facts and proof. Not just, oh yeah, we're Moors, hominis, dominus, and then that's it. No. I just showed you a document from the state of Georgia. You know, documents from the Library of Congress. Pay attention to people that's showing you real shit. Because the real ones are going to be targets by the United States' highest Inquisition army, the FBI. If you watch the movie Robin Hood, where Jamie Foxx was the Moorish commander, you'll see where the sheriff of Nottingham was meeting with the one of the cardinals, and he was talking about how, you know, fear is one of the most powerful weapons. That's why the church created hell, and how to stop Jamie Foxx, who was the Moorish commander, and Robin Hood, they had to call in their highest crusaders, and then they came in with all black. That's the FBI. That's the United States' highest Inquisition army. Then look up the definition of Inquisition. It means to what? To investigate. Then look up FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. And then look up Fred Hampton. Then watch the Malcolm X documentary on Netflix, how these Asiatics knew who killed El Hajj Malik al-Shabazz and they did nothing about it. And you'll see what our problems really are. And you'll see why we're a target out here. And you'll see why we need you. Because without the people, there is no me. I'm not up here teaching for me. I'm up here trying to help teach the people. Without the people, we're nothing. Without the people, any organization is going to fail. Without the people, no nation is going to stand without the people. Look, Marcus Garvey told you. You know, don't be confused as to what this is. Our history and law might be technical and detailed to the point where it's perplexing, but it's not confusing. It's not confusing. Just step out. You'll realize you're no longer perplexed, and then you can put things into context. None of this shit's confusing. That's all I got. And I like that you're doing your bow and arrow. I think that shit's dope.
Yeah, gonna have it, man. Hey, peace to the chat. Hey, peace, Jamal. Hey, brother, I see you do your thing. GS Kudjo, I see you in the cut over there. Other brothers and sisters, I see you out there. And so, yeah, I'm just gotta string it up so gotta wax the string so that it doesn't deteriorate. And so, yeah, just in the spirit of, you know, part of me thought it was the kind of the lower self working. That's the little Moabite in the background. Say what's up, Mar.
Peace.
So she has her own too. So, you know, it's been a while. It can be it can be expensive. At the same time, it's one of those it's renewable ammo too. So you let one off, and then, you know, hey, just going back to the spirit of the ancestors and putting everything together and doing it in practice. You know, because more is a verb too. And so, you know, in the language, a noun would be a double negative. So, you know, us in the act of things that's living. Living is the action. And, you know, the prophet said, hey, I want active Moors, not passive Moors, because it is the passive people that that have the tendency to flip and be on the fence. And part of me too thought that, you know, because it's in my nature to as much as I love people, and, you know, I'm about love and peace and everything, at the same time, if you want some friction, then, you know, I'm about friction. And as I've come along in, you know, this cycle of time, I try to not come from that perspective. And, you know, Brother Jamal, some of the things that you said
about, every other people defends themselves. Every other people defends their prophet. You start talking about, Joseph Smith or somebody else to some, people who are devout in what it is that they practice. And, you're going to have some funk. You're going to have some friction there. And so part of the reason why we don't get respect is because we don't command it not only from ourselves, but we don't command it from other people. And unless you stand like you do with a bully, until you stand up, then it's almost like if you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. And our people have been falling for however long now. And I'm sick of it. I'm ready to, especially when it comes to us. Me personally, I've always held people closer to me more accountable than I hold like a colonist or somebody like that. So I want to go. I'm hesitant about saying certain things, because
Islam Morris.
We do have to be Islam. We do have to, conduct ourselves in a certain way. But I don't feel bad about saying I want to go. Sometimes I really want some of these traders and turncoats and people helping to continue the condition of our people. I want to go off with these people's heads. Like, I can't wait. Everybody's apocalypse. Oh, things are going bad. I can't wait. For things to come to where they are. Because I'm going to be the first, I'll tell anybody, I'm going to be the first one in line to start cutting people's heads off. All these people, and, like Master Teacher says.
Join the Morris Militia.
What? A lot of these nigger leaders going to be hanging from light posts. And, I'm going to be right in line trying to be, I don't want to be the one with the no hood, no black hood or nothing, bare face, cutting off heads, and that's the way, that's the way it's got to be. Because, like I said, every other nation, the United States, quote unquote, they tell you treason, that's death. And up on treason, and why can't we have the same? Why don't we operate like that?
Because we don't. Because we're not in unison, we're not together in all one thought, mind, and body and soul. Islam Morris. Yeah, and I'm gonna put my 2 cents in, because first of all, brothers like Jamal, Kudjo, myself, and other Moors that's out here really going the backs for our nation, and then you have dirty Moors that sit around here throwing rocks and hiding their hands. See, I know all of us is tired of it. We have to battle the colonizer. Then on top of that, we got to battle the dirty Moor. You see what I'm saying? So as us coming together as a united front, it doesn't matter what territory you're from. You know what I mean? We need to go ahead and do what we have to do, just like Kudjo said and Abdullah said. Organization is everything. Once we come together and organize and implement what we want as a nation and live by it, then changes will come. Then we could put the dirty Moors off, take them to the temples, chop their neck off and let it roll. You know what I mean? However we want to do it. But we all got to come into one accord first before that can even happen. But I am down with it, most definitely. Just because I know a lot of the stuff that they are doing to us as far as, trying to put us against each other, then they come out with the misconception in the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition, against Moors, other Moors. You see, so once we abolish that and we all come in one accord, yeah, things will move in that light. Islam, I yield the floor, Moors.